I feel like the odd man out right now. I'm the only one with the shirt off. But that's you invited me to do that when I was in the Metaverse.
Well, that's what we did.
You told me that you were all going to do it, and then I came out of the Metaverse and all of you had your shirts on. So.
See? You need to go back in the Metaverse.
Why don't you take your shirt off, man?
Because I look disgusting with my clothes on.
That's
true.
true.
No, but I look beautiful. That's actually what
You do.
people say about me.
He's just
when
standing there, just
they look at me shirtless.
nips out, just being like, "Hello, governor."
Hello, Governor.
Hey, I didn't hodl.
Good, man. I'm good.
Huddle's been drinking.
By the way, I always, I have been drinking.
You owe me some Bitcoin.
Peter's
he
producer.
does owe you some Bitcoin. He does owe you Bitcoin.
Peter's producers supplied me with
Huddle.
Yeah.
You owe him some
No,
Bitcoin.
I do. I'm getting there. Peter's producers supplied me with Modelo and Blanton's, and so I'm crunk, as the kids say.
I've been gone for 45 minutes.
But
He told me he'd been drinking since he got here, which made it seem like it was a lot longer than that.
I owe you half a Bitcoin, which is roughly $20,000 at the moment, and I gave it to you on this open dime because I straight up, here you go.
Oh, I will fuck this up.
I know you don't know how to sweep an open dime.
Yeah.
That's why I gave it to you on an open dime, because you LARP like you know how to open an open dime, but you have no fucking idea to open one. And it's hilarious to me that now you have possession of 20 grand worth of Bitcoin that you have no idea how to access.
What do I do with this, Danny?
First is you have to insert it in your anus.
All right, but listen, that's
doesn't know. He doesn't know.
that's a whole Bitcoin I've had off you now. How do you feel about that?
I feel like what I'm going to do is, let me tell you, I have a whole plan to get it back.
I wish you'd have taken the other bet.
I'm going to show up to Bedford Real, or whatever the fuck your shitty soccer team is called that I funded, and I'm going to bet on the opposite side of it, and you have to bet your club because you're Bedford fucking, to the death. And I'm going to show up in England, in Bedford, one of these days. I'm going to say, Peter, I'm betting the other side. You have to bet Bedford for 1 Bitcoin. Will you take it?
I've got a better bet.
Pussy.
I got a better bet.
Pussy?
I bet you. No.
Pussy.
I got a better bet.
So,
I bet you a Bitcoin next season we finish top of our league, and you can have every other position. If we don't come top, you
this
win.
Is bullshit. This is bullshit because I know for a fact that because of the Bitcoin fucking price pump, you have more money to work with than every other fucking team in your league. So no, the answer is no. You're gonna have to bet a specific game with me. Specific game. And I'm gonna fly to fucking Bedford.
Okay.
I'm gonna fucking fly there.
First game of the season.
Not first game. No, I'm gonna pick the game. I'm gonna show up. And if you don't support your club, people are gonna know what a bitch
No,
is.
I'll put a Bitcoin behind my
straight
club.
up, they're gonna know.
It's done. Bitcoin behind my club.
All right.
You pick the game next season.
He's
done.
It seems like he really wants to give you back your Bitcoin.
Done, son.
Come on! But you're determined to make sure he gets more.
Come on!
But if you lose, that would be 2 Bitcoin. You'll be down.
That would be painful. That would be painful. But we don't I don't want to think about that. Yeah,
Okay.
I want to think about that. First of all, you need to figure out how to open a fucking open dime. Now that I've given it to you, you're gonna have to figure it out.
I'm just gonna call up MVK.
He has no idea. He has no fucking.
It's like a PDF online on how to do it. It's not going to be hard.
No, he doesn't know. You think Peter
Your grandmother could figure it out.
You think Peter can sweep an open dime? Mm-hmm. What are the odds that Peter can actually sweep this open dime?
100%.
I mean, I wouldn't bet a Bitcoin on myself.
There's $20,000 on this open dime. What are the odds that Peter can sweep it?
100%.
Zero.
It's not 0.
The odds are 0.
So it's actually
0.
I can use Google. I can phone NVK.
Dude,
it's
Peter
actually
literally
18,500
Peter
right
knows
now.
everybody in the industry. He could
the block
literally
clock.
phone NVK who made the open dime, and
That's
he
true.
still wouldn't figure out how to do it. That's why I gave it to him on an open dime, because I know he doesn't know.
I have confidence that Peter will be able to
I know
sweep.
he doesn't know.
It's
I know
super
he doesn't.
easy.
No, he has no idea.
Is there like a password?
Yes.
No,
There is.
There's
Is
not.
that how you fucked me? You've given
There's
me
not a
something.
password.
There is a password.
There's not.
There is.
No,
It's
you
a
just-
secret action you have to take.
You just fucking press a.
Do you know what I would have done if I would
push
use?
pin through the seal?
I would have given
Yeah.
me an empty one, thinking there's like a good chance he can't do it.
That one's full.
I don't know.
Which is funnier because I know you can't do it.
I'm gonna figure this shit out. Anyway, HODL. Always good. Junseth, good to see you, man. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We did our last show, I don't know, 2 years ago? Before the pandemic, I
It
feel
was
like.
good. I like that one.
Or was it during the pandemic? I don't even remember. I know we were really close
It's
in a little
probably
hotel
during
room.
because I was doing remote interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably.
No,
why.
you didn't remote. We were in a little hotel room.
No, we did one after that
Oh, that's true. That was during.
Yeah.
During
where we discussed art,
art. Yes.
modern art,
Yeah.
Modern art.
Yeah.
and our difference of opinion with people who don't like modern art.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about modern art on the
Safe.
blockchain.
On the blockchain.
On the blockchain.
Yeah.
NFTs.
NFTs. Metaverse. Web3.
We're going to do the lot.
What's that? Are we going to do everything?
We're going to do the whole lot. So
All right.
listen, it was Danny said to me, Ben was in a clubhouse room, and you were doing a show about how the metaverse doesn't exist. So you're having a discussion.
Okay,
And
so
we got to make a show on this.
let's talk it out. Yeah, so me and Junseth, both of us, not just me, but me and Junseth, have both been talking about the fact that the metaverse
Metaverses are.
straight up doesn't exist. It's not even a real thing. It's fake. And I told Ben, I said, this would be a funny show. And so that's how we got to here. And now I'm sitting in palatial Malibu in an Airbnb that costs $5 million. I mean, Peter's spending way too many sats on this thing. You know, it's obvious, but it's okay. You know, you got to live a little. You know what I mean? Peter is in very bad health.
I think you funded this.
No,
model.
Peter's-
I think you just funded
Peter's in
this.
atrociously bad health. He could die. He could die at any moment.
You paid for this, dude.
He's had COVID for 8 months. Anyway,
He's had COVID
Dude, I just live on the money you lose to me.
so the thing is on Clubhouse over the last like several months, I've been talking to idiots who've been telling me that essentially the metaverse is a real thing, and they would say things to me like, not only is the metaverse real, but we're in the metaverse right now, and I would say, the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
We're on an audio app on Clubhouse. How is this the metaverse? In my definition, this is the internet. And they would say, no, it's the metaverse. We're in the metaverse, dude. You don't even get it, bro.
Can you go deep in that? Could we actually be in the metaverse?
No, we're in the metaverse.
No, but like the Matrix.
Only if
Yes.
simulation theory is true, Peter.
Absolutely.
What odds do you put on simulation theory being real and that we're in a simulation?
Here's the
Zero?
thing. Here's the thing that most people who are stupid don't understand about simulation theory is that in Nick Bostrom's original paper on simulation theory, the most likely outcome is that humanity never reaches a post-human civilization or post-human era. And so the most likely outcome is that we blow ourselves up through nuclear war or climate change or starvation or whatever, and we never reach the post-human era.
The great filter.
And the second most likely outcome is that we reach the post-human era and we create, myriad simulations, and we live inside of one of those simulations. And so the lowest probability denominator is that we live inside of base level reality in which we create the simulations. But the most likely scenario is that we die out before we create simulations.
But it's a non-zero chance we are in one.
It's non-zero. Like, it's the middle scenario, essentially.
What percentage chance do you put that we're in one?
I would say that the likelihood that we don't reach the post-human era is like at 80%, especially like with everybody arguing about what their race and their dick is.
So there's a 20%
like
chance
You know what I
we're
mean?
in one.
Yeah, there's a 20% chance that we're in a simulation, and there's like probably like a 0.0000001% chance that we're in the base level reality that creates the simulation.
What about you, Junseth? Do you think we could be in one?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I tend to think that like the simulation theory is just like a nice way for atheists to tell me they believe in God.
It is a version of intelligent design, as Junseth put it.
It's like the idea that it's
Yeah.
like the question is whether it's Vitalik Buterin or a man like with a beard in the clouds in some ethereal place, and I'd put my money on the second one.
It's Alec.
All right, so listen, you've got these conversations on Clubhouse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. There's people saying we're in the metaverse now. Is it? Are you saying there can never be a metaverse, or are you saying?
Yeah, I think that's the thing I want to be specific about before we start this, essentially interview is.
It's already started.
We started, dude.
No,
We started.
I'm aware, but what I'm saying is that I'm more or less bullish the idea of VR, AR, XR, mixed reality, whatever you want to call it. I'm bullish that idea. I think it's a really interesting idea, and I've been bullish for it a long time. And I think that humans are naturally going to want to live in extended versions of their reality or mixed versions of their reality. But the problem with it becomes, the version of it that's being sold now, like we're all in the metaverse, is essentially this like hey, we're in an NFT universe, and I bought this Bored Ape, and we're going to live in this version of the reality that I subscribe to, where this Bored Ape is on my T-shirt when I attend a Marshmallow concert in Fortnite, and that's going to be the version of the metaverse that I'm aligned with. And I think that version of the metaverse is vaporware, and I think it's bullshit, and I think that.
And also that's the only version of the metaverse that they believe matters, right? They want to believe that I was in a Clubhouse room similarly, and a guy was telling me how airplanes are going to be amazing in the future. They're going to be cheaper because you can build them in the metaverse. And and I tried to push back on the point. I told him that was, I was very respectful. I said that's idiotic. And
why would you get on a plane in the metaverse?
I don't know.
You could just hop.
Teleport.
It doesn't make any sense. Technology in the metaverse is not an issue. You can literally put Star Trek-like reconstitution engines in the metaverse that will disintegrate your particles and then move you some other place because you're just information, right?
Yeah.
So there's no reason. But he was like, airplanes are going to be cheaper to build. It's going to be cheaper to get places. Everything is going to be way, way, way cheaper because we're in the metaverse. And I couldn't believe that this was something that somebody was saying. And it sounded very much like they were saying it because they were trying to convince themselves. Mm-hmm. So, I mean...
Yeah, but there are a lot of stupid people out there.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think this is what the VCs are trying to do right now, pitching this stuff. The metaverse pitch is that it is an alternate reality. And what's blowing my mind is the number of people that are excited about being plugged into this thing that they are literally pitching as the Matrix.
Right. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you my interpretation of metaverse, and then you can either destroy it or agree, whatever. For me, the metaverse is, as a singular term, doesn't really work because there should probably or most likely be multiple metaverses if they exist. And for me, therefore, if there's a metaverse, what it is it's like a VR sim city. You go into that world and you maybe have a home in it, and you can maybe go to your friend's home, but you can maybe go to you want to watch a Liverpool match, you end up in the stadium. But perhaps the Liverpool thing's developed by themselves. So really what you're using is your VR set to go into your home. But when you want to do the Liverpool game, you have to come out and then reload that application. And who knows if this stuff all integrates at one point so you don't have to log out.
Isn't that just a video game?
Well, the point is, but I get what you're saying. But for me, the metaverse is like this world you can go in and live and do different experiences, and it kind of can grow and grow and grow. And it really is, it's just a label. We're relabeling something we've already got for a future where it's a more holistic experience.
Yeah, so I think that the conception of the metaverse that you're describing is the sort of idea that, there's going to be some device that's invented by Apple or Google or whomever, and
right now,
and that you're going to spend 90 to 95% of your time in AR, XR, mixed reality. And that you will be essentially in the metaverse at that point, and that the metaverse will be a extension of the internet. And I think that's a credible idea. I think that will happen at some point in the future. The problem is that we don't have that technology existing today, and that there is no market leader with market share that makes it obvious that is going to happen. And so this is not a sort of a far-fetched idea on the technology spectrum that it will happen eventually, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And so if you're trying to sell your Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT or whatever based on the predicate of this idea, that it's just not going to happen.
At what point are you in a metaverse? Or is it just too vague an idea you can never really define it?
The metaverse is a place and time. Like I just said, it's a place and time at which you're spending greater than 90% of your time in a digital environment, right?
So you live in there and you come out maybe to sleep.
I would say that today we spend greater than 50% of our time in a digital environment using our smartphones, and with an AR glasses set or something of that kind, we will spend greater than 90% of our time in a extended reality, metaverse style interaction.
You wake up, you put on your headset, you go in.
Yeah. And then you go to sleep. You take off you take it off maybe to have sex, to jerk off, to shit, whatever. But most of the time you're in it. Right?
You maybe would have the sex in the metaverse.
I mean, you
could even shit in the metaverse.
Depending on who you're having sex with.
Yeah.
For what
first dates could be in the metaverse. Yeah. I think a lot of the metaverse conception right now is largely due to the fact that people are trying to justify these NFT purchases.
Yes.
And I find that interesting. Like, I think a lot of them do believe that these NFT purchases are going to be worth something because they're going to be used in the metaverse for some, reason. And maybe they will initially, but like over time, you're going to have a degradation of the value of, especially early NFTs. It's just, if it can't be a flex forever. The art of like CryptoPunks or Bored Apes is shit art. It doesn't represent much in culture. Other than stupidity, I think.
All right, let me argue back with you on that.
Yeah.
And as somebody who doesn't own an NFT, never bought one,
Yeah.
I don't fully understand it. I don't care for them. But
Well, I tried to enlighten you on non-fungible tokens early on, but you rejected it.
but are we not being hypocrites here with the whole modern art thing? Are we potentially being boomers? We had you and I had a long conversation about.
no,
bear with me. Let me finish.
No.
This is between me and him.
No.
So you and I had this long conversation
Yeah.
about modern art. There are people, Bitcoiners specifically,
Uh-huh.
who think modern art is fiat art.
Yeah.
There's no kind of like effort that goes into
Yeah.
it. Like a Rothko can't be justified at $50 million, $100 million because it's just a couple of squares on a canvas.
Sure.
And you and I said, no, this is not only wrong, it's insulting.
Correct.
Yeah, art is subjective. So
I'm glad that you said that because I was afraid that maybe I'd taken the other side of that. I didn't remember. I was like, shit, did I say something? I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that.
But like, isn't it, if art is subjective, could you not argue that, forget the technology on NFTs,
I don't view art as subjective. I never have.
well, it's personal, so it's subjective.
I don't view it. I view it as a matter of taste, and I think that taste is something that you develop and is somewhat objective. And if you have taste, if you develop taste, what you can do is you can do something like look at a Rothko, and you can say like, it's not for me, but I see the design, I see what it is.
I slightly disagree on that. I think there are things you just won't like and you don't appreciate.
That could very well be.
Whatever. But
So
could you like so in the art world there are tens of thousands of tortured artists not making money, and then you get the odd Rothko, Picasso, etc.
The Bored Apes entrepreneurs are not among those.
No, but what I'm saying is that
I'm so depressed. I'm going to draw apes.
But could you not argue that Bored Apes are a cultural representation of this period of time? Something we don't like, but it's still a cultural representation of this period of time.
No, I think Rare Pepes are. And this has been my point since the beginning, is that none of this is art. This is all response. Generally, art is conversational, predictive, stuff like that. It's advancing of discussion. Rothko and like a lot of the modern art, in my opinion, is very interesting. With just with regard to like its the intelligence service involvement in its creation to basically change conversation around what culture was and such. This isn't a change in conversation. It's not an advancement in conversation. Rare Pepe, however, was. And the reason that was is because that was predictive. It was a predictive piece of art that said, this is the stupid shit that people are going to do in the future. And they made it, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago? I don't know how many, it's many years ago, before the NFT started. This is what but-for causation. Without Rare Pepe, and I'm glad to throw my own hat in the ring. Without Bitcoin Uncensored, there is no Rare Pepe. Without Rare Pepe, there is no CryptoKitties. Without CryptoKitties, there is no CryptoPunks. Without CryptoPunks, there's no Bored Apes. Without Bored Apes and CryptoPunks, there is no NFTs. So I think
you can't guarantee that.
I think that
you
it might have happened in 10 years.
That's
the progression.
CryptoKitties
is a direct result of what people saw happen in Rare Pepes. And the Rare Pepe stuff was literally, there's hilarious interviews with like Theo, for example, that you can go watch that are they're just fucking funny. And they're funny because he was acutely aware of what we were doing. Rare Pepe was a conversation about how dumb blockchain conversation had gotten and how dumb it could get. That was the joke.
And the Rare Pepe sold last week for 18 Bitcoin.
Yeah. So there you go.
I think look, I've said my point on NFTs. I'm not a fan. I have no intention of buying them. I have no intention of creating them. It's just not a part of my life. But at the same time, I observe on Twitter, and Twitter has now enabled people to post their flex as their avatar, and people are doing it. and that's not going away in the short term.
I agree with that.
I think within the metaverse, you can see the NFTs and be an extension of your avatar.
But it's just a Beanie Baby.
The fuck
like
is
that's all it is. Like
the fuck is the metaverse?
Yeah, no, it's just a Beanie Baby. I mean, like people buy prestige all the time. The problem with prestige is that it's a moving target. Like, you know, people talk about like what the next blockchain that's going to come up is going to be, and they try to like jump on these trains. And we talked about it last week, HODL. Like we talked about how early Bitcoiners were wondering about sort of Bitcoin bimetallism. You know, Litecoin called itself the silver to Bitcoin's gold, and we had a big conversation about in Bitcoin whether bimetallism was a thing you needed. Did you need a gold, or did you need a silver to Bitcoin's gold? And one of my biggest critiques, and one of the reasons that I would call myself a Bitcoin maximalist, is it doesn't make any sense, particularly for a store of value, if what you have to do is maintain your eye on Reddit and find out what the next thing you're going to have, like what is the next thing you're going to have to move your money into in order to maintain your wealth. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a world that anybody actually wants to live in. It's a world that 13-year-olds want to live in because they want to get rich, and the best way to do that is to get on a pump and
Catch
play.
a new wave,
yeah.
I was here in LA a few years ago, and I met the guy. Sadly, he passed away last year, I think it was. The guy used to run Wax, and he did a presentation on. They had like a part of their business where you could buy. They were talking about buying things within like World of Warcraft and things like that. And he talked about a guy who bought this limited edition one-of-one gun, and it was $30,000. And I was like, "What the fuck?" And he said, "Listen, what do you like? Do you play golf?" I said, "I play golf." He said, "Well, some people play golf, some play tennis. And when they play golf, maybe they buy the most expensive golf clubs. They're not going to make fuck all difference to their game, but they want that." He said, "This guy doesn't play golf. He plays whatever, Wizards and
CSGO or whatever.
And he wants that gun. He wants everyone to know he's got that gun."
But this is my point, is prestige items are a moving target. So like NFTs might be around a while, but these markets are going to like form and collapse. And if what you're trying to do is flex, you're going to have to spend a lot of money flexing over the next few years.
But maybe some people just will, or maybe a bit like the art world, there will be a few unique sets that will retain value. Maybe Bored Apes or Yacht Club or whatever these, I don't even know what they are, but maybe over time, because they were the original badass expensive
but
NFT.
You're just buying receipts.
It's like,
yeah, of course.
Are CryptoPunks even a flex anymore? Because it seems to me more that the Bored Apes are a flex, right? Like Justin Bieber owns a Bored Ape, and so does Eminem, and so does Kylie.
He owns
Jenner,
a receipt for a Bored Ape.
Well, of course, but like I
think fundamentally, what's interesting with the NFTs versus like a Bitcoin, and I guess we're starting with the NFT conversation here. Is that Bitcoin's interesting in that you can have it, right? But you can't really own it, because you have it if you know the private key. If 10 people know the private key, all of them have it. None of them really own it until, if you spend it, then you might own the thing that you spent it on. But like anyone can have it. It's very difficult to own. NFTs, on the other hand, anybody can own, but nobody can have, because you don't have it. You have the receipt. And the image anyone else can download and take. And it's very, like, unless it's an in-game asset, it makes no sense. And an in-game asset even is a little bit problematic, because what you're doing if you're creating an in-game asset, like let's say you make World of Warcraft in-game assets on the blockchain so everyone can see them. What you've effectively done is you've given your competitors a way to steal all of your customers. They can be like, anybody who comes to our game can start at whatever level they were in World of Warcraft. Import your assets. A giant orc hammer is this in our game.
And these games have solved this problem before.
They've solved it. It's in a database.
They
don't need a blockchain.
It's centralized. So like, why do they need to solve it? And like Junseth, we were talking about this, is essentially the idea that me and you both have the same NFT, right? But like, what does it actually mean to own that NFT? Does it actually mean anything? It doesn't.
Well, somebody else is picking the image, right? That the NFT represents, and they can change that image.
It's not actually on chain. It's just a receipt for the image.
Correct. And unlike Bitcoin or even any of these blockchains, whether you're a Bitcoin maximalist or not, it is not the thing itself. And I think that that's really important to understand, is that like when you buy a Beanie Baby, they don't hand you the receipt and the receipt has value.
They hand you a Beanie Baby.
It's the Beanie Baby that has value. Yeah. With NFTs, I mean, we've never had anything like it where a receipt retains value. So, I mean, some of these NFTs are conferring rights on people. That's a little different. You don't need an NFT for that. You could have done that in plenty of other ways. It's just contracts. But like some of these NFTs are conferring rights on people, fine. But you don't need blockchains for this. And there's no reason to use a blockchain apart from the fact that you're just trying to like jump on a trend. Blockchains are always marketing, always. If it's not being used for cash money, there's no purpose to it other than just marketing.
Yeah, and this goes to the point of like, what is the point of your crypto blockchain, right? Like, because we as Bitcoin maximalists, we basically like honed in on the idea that there is only one valid proof of work blockchain, and that is Bitcoin. And in fact, there's only one valid use of blockchain, and that is to securitize Bitcoin. It's like these are endogenous systems, and they only apply to the assets that are, within their design, right? And so it's like, what the fuck are you using your blockchain for, if not to be a shitty protocol that's ultimately centralized in terms of like, platform maximalism, so you can get around the limitations of your shitty protocol design? Like, it makes no fucking sense, and yet I have to deal with this like just bullshit from people who are NFT promoters all day long about like, what it means to be an NFT, and it means nothing.
We have had representations of things rather than the things themselves, right? That have value, and those are stock certificates, right? And in some sense, those are like NFTs. But the reason that they're valuable is because there's legal infrastructure in place to make them valuable. And the reason that we did that is because those things produce things. They produce value. And so we wanted a way to distribute ownership, and we did that.
Whereas a blockchain is a way to route around regulations.
Yeah, exactly.
It's regulatory arbitrage.
So the only way that the NFT space sees any actual value going forward is if like regulators get their claws inside of it and start building infrastructure around which like people own JPEGs.
Then decentralization doesn't matter.
Right, but then
it never matters.
Not only does it not matter, it's just a hilarious thing to think that like Congress will do.
Yeah.
Like if they started regulating NFTs and the selling of JPEGs, I would laugh my ass off. It would be so funny. It'd be a great waste of time. It would be the moment we knew that the country was lost.
This idea of Web3 is that we are going to, Web 1 was this idea that like everyone's going to be their own server, and we're going to run our own, email server, and we're going to, be autonomous.
I fundamentally believe that, by the way.
Well,
I think the three most important inventions of my lifetime, I've been saying this for a while: Bitcoin, the internet, the Raspberry Pi.
I think you're wrong, because what Web 1 showed us is that people don't want to be their own server. They don't give a fuck about personal software.
We didn't have the Raspberry Pi. We didn't have $30.
Well,
that's
your aunt doesn't know what the fuck a Raspberry Pi is.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
care.
The single what do they call them? The single chip boards or whatever. What are they called? The single PCBs, whatever they're, small factor PCBs for $30. I mean, it's not about whether your aunt knows. It's about whether you can be your own server. It's about whether you can use it for like, personal privacy and stuff like that. Like, particularly as Americans, we're obsessed with the idea that the government becomes rotten, and what we do if the government becomes rotten. That's why we are obsessed with guns, although we're in California, which is sad because I view California as the defenders of the nation against China. So they'll march right in without any.
They'll march
California.
right in.
Californians will throw rocks.
How far do they get? Arizona?
Arizona's about as far as you get. The next state over,
California,
Utah.
California would be like, "Thank you. We appreciate your multiculturalism.
Yeah,
like,
we love you.
We
join our
love
clubs.
you. You're so great." Did you bring Szechuan sauce?
But we are obsessed with this idea of like the government going rotten. And if the government does go rotten, like the internet, Bitcoin, and single like the small factor PCBs are the answer. And that's what's amazing to me, is that we have all of those things in place right now, and guns.
Is it though that they're just not that cool? I mean, we think it's cool.
Well, it's just that people do not want to deal with the hassle of running their own Raspberry Pi node. They just don't. Mm-hmm. And I mean,
but they don't have to, really.
Yeah, well, no,
they don't want to until they have to. That's the thing.
For full self-sovereignty, they do.
No, my friend, this is the Bitcoin argument.
Yeah,
like Bitcoin doesn't work. But you don't do Bitcoin until you have to come to Bitcoin.
Yes.
This is what always happens. People say, I don't need Bitcoin.
But very few,
very
few in the Western world have to come. That's the problem.
Well, slowly, it's a concentric circle of people that don't need it, right? Like it's bigger, it's smaller and smaller.
That's true.
Like the circle expands. First years ago, what was it? It was who needed Bitcoin. It was Bitcoiners and lowlifes who decided that they were going to like play with money. Money's always been dirty, you know.
Yes.
That's why you know the Jews started like picking it up and doing usury and stuff like that, or like not usury, but like interest, right? Because the rest of society viewed this like filthy lucre as money. So you end up with like very wealthy people who played with money early, right? The Rothschilds and stuff like that. And money's always been considered dirty. You know, bankers now deal with it, and now it's like a highfalutin thing. But Bitcoin comes around, it's new money, and it's dirty. Just like money's always been considered dirty. So who gets in first? Hookers. Who gets in second? Drug dealers.
That's why Peter's here.
Who gets in third? Libertarian. No. Who gets in third? You have you know, the neo-Nazis and such, right? That start getting debanked. And then, like, the government has, you know, in more recent years been going after, like, conservatives in general. And the circle of people that need this is growing and growing and growing. And that's the same thing with, like, any of these devices. The internet early on, very few people used, and as it became easier and better, people used it. The Raspberry Pi is the same thing. Like, a lot of these node interfaces that Bitcoiners are using are running on essentially a Raspberry Pi, right? And you don't have to interface the Raspberry Pi because someone else did all the installation for you, but you buy it from Casa or something like that. You know, you basically are buying a Raspberry Pi with a node.
Right.
Correction, Casa doesn't have a node anymore,
They
just
used
so we
to.
know. They used to.
Yeah.
They discontinued that.
Yeah, start 9.
I mean, just on that point, like everyone should run a node, but it's not 100% essential. You can be pretty self-sovereign with a cold card.
You got to know why you should run a node before you do. I mean, like, that's the thing with Bitcoin. It's hard because
you're trusting someone else's node.
Well, you're trusting someone else's node, but you also don't understand what your node does at first, right? Like, you don't understand until you know,
you
are
don't
here
have
a while.
the scars, yeah.
You don't understand that, like, the node provides you privacy and that the node provides you this and that, and that, like, you don't really have the guarantee of, you know, like, all of these things are sort of abstract concepts in Bitcoin, and you don't understand them until, you know, you're here a while and you find out that you need them because, like, I don't know, maybe you're one of those people that the government doesn't like, or you're a stripper or you're labeled a neo-Nazi, like I don't know who's that kid, Nick Fuentes here in the U.S. who the government has gone after. Like, that's the kind of person that suddenly it's very important that they're running a node and that, like, they can, you know, receive funds or whatever the hell they want.
I think with nodes, it's going to be similar to cars in that most people will take their car to a garage, and very few actually tinker in the engine themselves and fix problems. And I think with Bitcoin, it'll be very similar. Most will use someone else's node. They will use a hardware wallet that
they'll use Ledger's node or Trezor's node, yeah.
Yeah, and they will trust that, and it will be more of a fringe idea to run a node. And that's not saying...
But you can.
You can, but you can also figure out how to change the oil in your car or, you know, fix certain things, but people just don't.
Stuff.
Man stuff.
I agree with you, but to me, a lot of the sovereignty stuff, like, I'm not like big on the notion of sovereignty. A lot of the Bitcoiners are kind of obsessed with it, but I'm not super big on the notion of, like, self-sovereignty. As I'm a fan of the nation state in many ways. Like, for many years, I was called a cuck in that way.
Yeah,
but,
I get
like,
that.
Yeah. But I don't think that the nation state's the worst thing. I do think, though, that it's important to prepare for nation state rot. And I think that these are the best vehicles to do that with.
So would you say, I mean, I wouldn't say, it's pretty obvious we're in a phase of nation state rot right now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Pretty obvious. Do you think the NFTs themselves are a reflection of that rot?
Yes. 100%.
Look at the book When Money Dies by Adam Ferguson.
Read it?
It's the same thing, right? It's like when a currency is circulating the drain, the people that are under that currency will speculate on the nation's dog shit, essentially.
That's why Ethereum is where all the NFTs are.
NFTs
That's
are no
not true.
different.
Some are on Solana.
Just kidding.
So, it's all the same shit. Solana is just dog shit under a different name.
I think the current generation is suffering from, like, a nihilistic attitude.
Yes.
That is highly problematic, and in them is conferring this idea that what they need to do is put their money into these high-risk assets and hope and pray that they get rich. It's sort of an accelerationism that they've adopted in their thinking, and it's this notion that all of the juice has been squeezed before they got here, and that they're just kind of skimming. They're licking the sort of, I don't know, dead testicular skin that's like left over.
No, I want to read this quote real quick that I saw on Wall Street Bets just a couple of days ago. This guy YOLO'd basically $500,000 that he had refinanced on his home mortgage into options expiry on Tesla's earnings calls, and when called on it, he basically lost everything because he was wrong on his bet. When called on it, people said, "You have that much money, but you still played a short expiry. You literally deserve it." And he said, "I didn't have that much money. I refinanced my house, which has appreciated a lot the last couple of years, and basically nothing changes in my life. I still have my house, my job, my income. I just will probably never be able to retire. This risk had two outcomes. I either retire and live my best life, or my life stays the same. It sucks to take the L, but at the end of the day, I won't be affected for many years by the time that every cell in my body will have been replaced, and I will be a completely different person anyway."
Jeff Booth would have an answer for that.
It's amazing.
And it's a great lie, because this generation was born into an America where you could afford a house if you worked. You couldn't afford a house at 23. You could have afforded a very small house, which is what your parents bought. Your parents bought a 900 square foot house. Kids don't want a 900 square foot house. They want a 3,000 square foot house. So they're looking, on up here in Malibu.
Making TikTok videos.
Yes. They're looking at homes and they're going like, I'll never afford what my parents had.
The house we're in costs $5 million, by the way.
If they bought the house their parents bought, they could afford it. If they, the idea that college is going up in price. You look at the average amount people actually pay for college, it's something like $15K a year. It's not the like $45K or $50K that the sticker price is. People get loans or sorry, not loans. People get scholarships. A lot of times these colleges subsidize the cost, and yet we like pretend the sticker price is the amount. Like these are the things that people talk about. Like they chart these out and they say, look at the sticker price of college. It's so much higher than it used to be. But these subsidies are available. And this entire generation has been told that they're never going to be able to afford these things. And the result is that they've developed nihilism, even though it's just a lie. It's a literal lie.
They can rent from BlackRock.
Well,
they could rent from BlackRock, which, by the way, most of them would be better off doing.
The nihilism causes them to do things such as investing in Bored Apes Yacht Club rather than, putting down money on their
investing.
Quote investing, rather than putting down money on their future home, or in an equities portfolio, or in Bitcoin, or anything that was stable and long term.
Tether.
Yeah, but fucking Junseth. But it prevents them from doing such because they believe that essentially that, the consensus is a lie, and they're not that wrong about that. Like the consensus is sort of a lie, and they also believe that the only way to get ahead is to YOLO their entire stack onto some ridiculous bet, and either
that is true that they're all playing. They're all putting 100% of their bet on black, and they do this throughout their life. Like when they're 14, they put 100% of their stack on black. When they're 20, they put 100% of their stack on black. Like it's a belief in this sort of like punctuated equilibrium of investment theory, where like you get as much of a stack as you can, put it all in black, hope for the best. You get as much of a stack, you lose it. You get as much of a stack you can, you put it all in black, and sometimes like with NFTs it works out because you put it all on Bored Apes, and they shoot to the moon, and now you're rich. Right,
but that only happens for very
rarely.
1 in 1,000 of these kids, or 1 in 10,000 of these kids.
And you had to be in on the, you had to have some insider info on what was going to occur.
But every kid knows someone who that happened to.
Right.
And that to them, like they've never met anybody who got rich by putting their money in indexes, because those people are quiet.
Well, and also one of the things we were talking about was that, they don't understand Bitcoin from first principles, right? So thusly, they don't understand NFTs from first principles, and they go, well, they're the same. I don't understand Bitcoin. I don't understand NFTs. Both of them seem to be, have some value.
We talked about that yesterday. Like, there's a simplicity of elegance in crypto, and well, not crypto generally, but Bitcoin in particular. There's this elegance that Bitcoin is. It's a simple machine. The hashing algorithm is useless for all things except for hashing. That's the only thing it's good for. It's good for being provided as a receipt for energy that you spent.
The monetary policy is 2 rules.
2 rules. Everything is super easy. Everything. And yet, combined together, Bitcoin creates this network and this system that is so hard to understand that you have to be a rocket scientist.
Well, we were talking about this. It's so simple that people actually seek complexity.
They want it to be more complex.
They want it to be
because
complex.
They don't want to believe that if it's simple, they wouldn't be able to understand it. Right? So that's Bitcoin is this like thing that's super easy to understand when you understand fundamentally what it is, but which is like no one believes that it could be so simple to do what it does. And you have these NFTs, which are utterly incomprehensible, completely. They're in these platforms like, for example, OpenSea. They're in these. They're off of the chain, which doesn't seem to make a difference to these people because they don't know what that actually means. If they were even more than that, if you go one deeper, being on chain wouldn't even change the nature of them. You still like that wouldn't actually make it better because you still wouldn't own the thing. Other people could still download the thing.
Right click.
Yeah. You right click. Exactly. And so putting it on the chain doesn't make it more secure. That is, in spite of it, these NFTs are extremely non-complex. But people want to view complexity because they don't understand what's going on. And then when they're explained what's going on, they make excuses for it, and they now are like, yeah, but consensus will give my Bored Ape value. People will be, the government will step in and force these things. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, if I were Christie's and I saw a need for this in the blockchain space, I would start making like an NFT database where you can upload your art for a cost. And they will hold it, and it's the Christie's NFT database.
This is a perfect example. Why does OpenSea even bother with the era of decentralization when they could just be much better, much faster, much more efficient in a totally centralized fashion? Why do they even fucking bother?
Let me go one further. If I were Christie's and I did that, I would then attach copyright to these things.
Right.
I'd make sure to register the copyrights.
Yes, yeah.
I would do that as a service for these NFT/art providers.
Absolutely.
And then I would start suing anybody who is going like violating the copyrights
that would
on
be
behalf of the artist.
That would be part of your thing as Christie's. Yeah.
And Getty Images have proved that's fairly trivial to do.
Super trivial.
Easy. It's very easy to do.
Very simple algorithm to check.
Being a copyright troll is extremely easy.
There's no such thing as a copyright troll.
There is, but being a copyright troll is extremely easy to do.
Is it a copyright troll or is it copyright
it's
enforcement?
legitimately your copyright.
Well,
it's not like
what Junseth
trolling.
is saying is that it's legitimately your copyright, but because the internet has a different vantage point on IP, that they call it a copyright troll, but there is actually no such thing as a copyright troll. It's your copyright.
It's copyright enforcement.
You own your intellectual property for 20 years. You own it.
But this to me would be like the rational way to do NFTs, and they don't want to do that because for some reason blockchain has to be involved, and it's because they want it to be complex. But this is very simple.
But it's to give purpose to the blockchains.
Yeah, the Ethereum blockchain in particular is a problem looking for a solution, right? Or is a solution looking for a problem. And they keep developing these ERC protocols and whatnot in order to basically provide solutions to things that nobody actually wants. And maybe they do want them ultimately, but things that are not useful for a blockchain to do.
Well, that's how Ethereum gets its pump.
That's what happens every single time.
Its pump. Yeah.
I mean, DeFi is similar. DeFi's got the same sorts of problems, right? Ethereum allows you to do these things on blockchain, and I mean, DeFi is going to have probably the first ever spectacular collapse that we've ever seen in the space because, like, it's all reliant on these stable coins, which if they became unpegged for any reason, and this I have to give Brad Mills credit for like this line of argumentation. If they were to become unpegged, which there's 1,000 reasons they could become unpegged, that whole thing collapses, and it collapses quick. There's no government regulation watching it. There's no way that these children who are building it understand how much they should have on deposit to make sure that these don't happen. There's no insurance. Like, they're fucked. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. And that's just kind of the whole space right now, is that people are just kind of piling into these things because they don't perceive the risk that's involved, or with NFTs, they don't perceive the idiocy of what they're claiming these things are and do.
Should we care though? Why should we care?
We shouldn't.
Like HODL will go on Clubhouse for 27 hours a day and
it's frustrating.
Well, do you feel like a moral duty to teach people?
Yeah, I do feel a moral duty to tell people what's actually going on because it's an obfuscation protocol, the entire Ethereum thing. And it's like, I know that these people don't understand. They haven't done the first principles research. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they're willing to, swallow any line of bullshit, hook, line, and sinker. And so, yeah, I mean, I do feel a moral obligation to tell them that they're fucking stupid and that, they need to fucking cut it out. And I don't know, man. I mean, to some degree, I'm sure Junseth will say, like, they need to just get racked and they'll learn on their own accord.
Gotta have your Pokemon game reset.
Yeah, and that's true, too, because people aren't going to listen to you. But I feel bad morally if I don't tell them what's happening.
I feel for me, the frustration is that with every single pump, you have a bunch of newcomers. And HODL, how many pumps have you had?
2.
It's a very Bitcoin question. How many pumps have you had?
3.
3. Okay.
I can get it done in 3 pumps, bro.
You do 3
I'm
pumps.
just saying.
You're 3 pump.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, my first one
A
didn't.
3 pump maximalist and a 2 pump maximalist.
My first one
That's the
didn't
same
count too much. I didn't really
Kind of
own
in the middle?
Bitcoin. I was just using it on Silk
That's
Road.
fine.
Yeah.
No, it's
Two.
it's about
I've had
community.
two. I've
It's-
had 2.
If you're in the community and you start like seeing things like
3 then. So 2013 was my first one.
So I think about the number of pumps that I've been in. I don't actually, I've lost count at this
Wait,
point.
did you
What are we,
own
5,
Bitcoin in
6?
2013?
So what I was doing, I was buying Bitcoin.
No, you don't count.
No,
That's 2. That's
no.
2
Bear
for
with
you.
me. You didn't let me finish.
I was here in 2013.
2013, I was buying Bitcoin to use the Silk Road. But then when the price started going up, I was buying Bitcoin CFDs on plus 500. So I was in the pump.
What do you count that as?
I don't know.
2 or 3.
It's what you think.
Dude, just because
All
I've got
right,
more
that's what
pumps
you
than you.
Takes more pumps. It takes more pumps for him.
My pump's bigger than your pump.
Yeah.
Can you access that open now?
I haven't fucking no idea what to
pump.
do.
Anyway.
So I mean, I don't know how many pumps I've been in. I don't know what counts as a pump in the early days. There was a lot of, but like, what's funny is every time this thing pumps, you get a million billion new people coming in, and all of them run through exactly the same fucking scams again and again and again. And they get here and they pretend like they know what they're talking about. And it's literally a manifestation of I just heard Bitcoin. I just heard about Bitcoin and I'm here to fix it.
Which is Junseth's meme.
But
He
That is my
created
meme.
But
He created that.
I should NFT that.
Yes, you should.
you should. But there
It's
are
worth several mil.
there are people who stay in the altcoin game multiple pumps.
Fuck those people.
There
Yes.
are.
They do.
They do. There are those people. And also what I feel like is that the altcoin, Ethernet, Solana community, NFTs, DAO people, I find that grows exponentially bigger per cycle pump than the Bitcoin community.
That's not true. No.
I
What you
feel
just
like
said-
it is.
what you feel like is wrong. The Bitcoin community dwarfs the shitcoin community, and it remains so still to this day. In the fact that,
How do you measure it?
we are still bigger than the shitcoin community.
But how do you
I don't
measure
think it
it?
matters.
Yeah, but whatever.
I don't think it matters.
Peter's saying that the shitcoin community pumps harder than the Bitcoin community. I mean, as
No,
compared
the reason
as
is simple.
compared
The
to
reason
what,
is simple.
you know?
The reason is simple. Because every time you have a pump, you have new people come in, and there's a huge number of people. And the first question they're asking is, how do I get rich?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the answer that you're going to get from a majority of places is go into shitcoins.
There are so many people who want to turn $8,000 into $40,000. I mean, there are so many people who want that.
It's not,
that is like
the promise here isn't turning
Yeah.
8,000 into 40. The promise here is turning 8,000 into 100 million. And that it's a very different set of promises.
but that doesn't happen. I mean, that's like.
We all know people that have done that.
Yeah, we do.
Well, okay, we all know people that have done that because we've been around for a long time, but it's very rare.
It's like 5 or 10
That's
people.
rare.
what they think they're doing.
Okay,
they think
middle,
they're doing that, but what they're actually doing is 8 into 40.
or
That's what they're actually doing.
Sometimes.
or
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that what I'm talking about is 8,000 into 8 million, which is a different game, and that's the Bitcoin game, which is several orders of magnitude higher. But it takes longer. It's not going to be as quick of a game. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
So if you want to turn 8 into 40, I don't know what to do with you. Like, if your grand ambition in life is to get a M3 BMW, I just don't know where to put you.
I think what it is, it's whatever number they start with, they want to get to 1 million. It's whether they start with 10,
Fine.
5,
Everybody
50.
wants to be a millionaire.
They want to get to 1 million.
Once you get to 1 million, though, it doesn't fucking matter. Nothing matters. It's like,
Well, you know that. I know
nihilist.
that.
yeah, everybody here is at this table is a millionaire, right? I just
Not
gave
me.
you 20 grand. I think that bumped you over the top, but
Yeah.
you know, you're a millionaire now.
That's what I can do with my,
Congratulations.
because I'm a millionaire.
You throw that shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you
I
better
better
be
go
careful
get
with
that.
that. It's 20 grand.
Already doesn't work.
But,
Fuck is it?
but yeah, the
Went
point-
under the fridge. Next Airbnb guest to stay here is going to be
the
very
point
very
is
happy.
about the point is not turning your million into 2 million. The point is about turning your million into 100. That's what Bitcoin's
I
about.
don't actually think that's the point that I'm here for, honestly. Like
Well, I'm
I'm
not.
all for getting
I
rich.
agree with you.
I'm all for getting rich.
I'm not here for that either. But what I'm saying is that that's the.
I don't have any.
argument.
I'm not going to like argue that I have any altruistic motive.
No, we're all here for our own accord.
Right.
No, that's not. I'm sorry. I'm not
Shut the
that.
fuck up. You're here for yourself.
I'm from Europe. We're socialists.
Everyone's here for themselves. You're here for yourself.
I'm not going to feign.
This Airbnb that we're in Malibu is worth $4.6 million. You could have easily gone to any fucking random.
By the end of the show, it's going to be 3.6.
But I care about my guests.
Well, he could have easily gone to any fucking conference center in any shitty LAX hotel room that would have been
But
way
I want
less.
a nice experience for my guests.
Okay, yeah. The point is, you're here for yourself too. Everybody's here for themselves.
A certain amount, but not entirely.
I don't know why people are here. Everyone's
here
here
for
for a different reason.
You're here for yourself.
Like
Everyone's here for themselves.
There's people who are here because they're satisfying a libertarian itch. There's people here who are Misans who are satisfying their Misan itch.
Right.
There's hookers who needed Bitcoin. There's me. There's people who started podcasts and trying to find answers to questions, and in finding it, found Bitcoin. There's people like me who are extremely who started as anarchists and maybe came around and changed our political positions and had to change our reasons for being here, right?
Yeah.
But
Same.
I'm not going to feign altruism, but what was the original part of this? Like, why?
Does the metaverse exist?
Well, not that part. That we're far from there right now.
Doesn't.
But
My point is,
the
should
newbies coming in, right?
should we care, and
Yeah.
why care? Like,
While I don't want people to lose money, I think in order for people to understand that they're not smart, that they are not knowledgeable, they have to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that people are here. I think you're correct, Peter, that people want to get to 1 million. It's this. Bitcoin feels like this Hail Mary. Crypto feels like a Hail Mary of sorts.
By the way, 9% of the U.S. is millionaires now.
I thought it was 8%. Did it change that much by today?
I'm pretty sure it's 9%.
it'd be 10% by the end of this
10% of
interview.
the-
And anyway, the point is, 9% of the U.S. population are millionaires.
Yeah.
So it's not that unattainable anymore.
The 2018 crash, going from a position of a crypto millionaire, yes, people talk about being paper millionaires, essentially a crypto millionaire, to being close to broke,
Right.
was in hindsight, one of the best things that's happened to me. So that point of going, maybe it's all part of the game theory, that you go and you try and get rich, you get wrecked, and then you learn from that. You build those foundations to protect yourself financially.
I think that giving an 18-year-old $1 million and letting them burn through it would be the best lesson that you could buy for an 18-year-old.
Brewster's Millions.
I don't
you
know.
could do
You say that. I think going from 0 to 1 million and back down is a far better lesson.
That's a
being
great
handed it.
lesson, but that's what an 18-year-old would be doing if you handed
Yeah,
them $1 million.
but they're not really, because if you can give them a
whether
million,
it's
You're correct.
if you can give them $1 million, they're already living a good life
Listen,
with you.
whether it's $1 million or whether it's 50 grand or whether it's 100 grand, whatever it is, right? If you're speculating on the NFT market or the shitcoin market or the DeFi market or whatever, and you're in on it, you're gonna make and lose that amount of money, straight up. And so you'll either learn your lesson or you don't, right? It happened to me. I mean, I was gambling on penny stocks and I lost, fucking $80,000, which at the time was all the money in the world. And it taught me my lesson. It really did. But for most people, it does not. So
Right.
But back to the point, why do we care? Because
we don't.
Look, but I'll put it to, because I still don't know your political persuasion, but you get called a cuck, you admit you're a fan of the state, or you agree with the state, or whatever.
I'm not a fan of this. I just think that the state has a role.
He loves
right?
it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm
Yeah.
reluctantly, I think it's better than
I
anarchism.
think the state is probably too big.
Yeah.
I care a lot about fiscal policy more than anything.
But therefore, do you agree certain things should be regulated?
Yeah, 100%.
So do you think this is something that should be regulated?
I think it's inevitable.
No, that's a completely different answer.
I don't live in the world of shoulds. I think that there are things that are going to be regulated, and this is one of them.
I mean,
so should it be
yeah.
regulated? I mean, it's going to be. So
if you're
then
talking
yes, I
about
guess.
is Gary Gensler from the SEC going to come in and clean up all the illegal securities? The answer is, fuck yes. I mean, have you been paying attention or
But
not?
are you glad about that?
I'm ambivalent.
Here's the thing: is this ideological bullshit about oh, what do you want to happen? Do you want everybody to fight it out in the free market? It's Dude, I don't know. If we lived in like my perfect paradise, Bitcoin would already be $100 million a coin, and you already be dead. So like, I don't have a magic wand. I can't just wave my magic wand and make things happen.
You only want me dead because I keep taking your money off you.
And like, if I could, I would do that, right? But like, I can't. So we live in the real world in which, the SEC has a bent against the majority of ICOs and DeFi, and they're going to come after it.
I'm strongly ambivalent to the regulation. I would like to see it be regulated well. I think they're going to make a lot of really dumb missteps. I think I view the United States right now as being desperate for money.
Yeah.
It's becoming clearer and clearer that they're desperate for money. And I think they view Bitcoin as like a giant pool of money that they can get. So I think that's a dangerous mentality for a government to begin thinking that is theirs. And I do think that there's a strong possibility they overregulate or problematically regulate the space. But as to like whether the regulation exists, I'm fairly ambivalent.
Do you think Bitcoin can solve the U.S. Fiscal position?
Do I think it could solve? If the United States put money in Bitcoin,
adopted it,
I think it would have to be a slow process.
I think the answer is no.
I think Bitcoin's in the way that I view money nowadays, and I've been using this analogy for a while, is that we've had money as a theory for centuries. We've known that there's this thing out there that's a great, perfect medium of exchange, and we've had things that are proximate to that thing that have a lot of the features of the thing: gold, silver, grain, shells, whatever the hell it was. And that when Satoshi solved the Byzantine generals problem, it was like someone putting a hole in the ground and oil popping out. But instead of oil, it was this orange coin.
Orange goo.
Yeah, it's orange goo, it's primordial orange goo. And we looked at it, and like those who know what money is looked at it and said, that's money. Holy shit. And it's the first time we've ever seen, real money. So, but I think right now what's going on is that Bitcoin is in the process of monetizing. And I think it's probably a bad time for any countries to do things like what El Salvador is doing. I think that's like a high risk bet. And it's going to be a really good bet on some days. And other days it's going to be the kind of bet that's going to get a president ousted or assassinated.
So it's a better bet for the country than it is the president who makes the decision.
Probably,
yes. Yeah.
It's a popular and unpopular decision depending on where Bitcoin is.
I think
it's a highly volatile asset.
Yeah, it's just a very radical thing to do. And
you'd have to be very slow. If you want to do it, you put like
right.
0.5% in, 1%.
But you could argue Bukele's doing it in the right way because they haven't put too much in.
Kudos to Bukele, but what Junseth is saying is accurate. Is that the political risk is astounding.
Yeah.
And it could come to bite you in the ass at any
time.
But
I think countries know this, and like
they do.
They're realizing that like this at some point this is going to be a bit of a who has the most Bitcoin war. And America, I think people don't realize that like part of the holdings of Bitcoin in any country are the number of people that actually hold it. And as a national security risk, I think that like in America, what they should be encouraging is people to hold it and people to find creative ways to mine and whatnot in the U.S.
And a friendly environment to live so people don't leave.
We don't have the government. In America, we don't have the government hold all the guns. We as Americans hold the guns. But
that's not to defend against invaders. That's to defend against a tyrannical regime.
No, yes. that's what they tell you. Both. It's for whatever reason we need the guns.
Yeah.
If we need the guns to defend against our own government, okay, we hope we never have to do that.
But
if we need the guns to defend American soil,
right?
Like there's, I don't know. I don't know how many, like probably 4 billion guns in the United States.
Would you want to be China and try and take Western Appalachia? You are fucked.
Well, so this
fucked.
This connects to a conversation.
You're gonna get raped.
I had a conversation
hardcore by Billy Bob.
I had a conversation yesterday with Vijay Boyapati, and we talked about post-democracy, that the US may balkanize at one point, and he sees that Bitcoin leads to an inevitable breakdown of the state, and you end up with city-states. And one question I put at him is that if that happened in the US, then as a global superpower, it's lost its position against, say, Russia and China, And then does the US as a geography become an easier target for these countries to exert influence?
Well, not just to exert influence, but to take over.
Well,
like
to exert influence, to take over, to annex whatever. But then does it become very similar as a war? Does it become?
This actually is why I think that.
Sorry, just let me finish. As a war, does that then become very similar to like the US invading Vietnam in that they have all the guns and the weapons and the might and the military, but the US ends up having a guerrilla army that's hard to defeat?
Ground war. I mean, if the U.S. ever tried to go to war with its citizens, it would be a ground war. Yeah. So the idea that the U.S. would use nukes or whatever F-22 Raptors on its citizenry is stupid. It would obviously be a ground war, a la Vietnam, and the people would win.
Ground and air.
The people would win because they understand the territory better. The same way the Vietnamese understood the territory better.
I really enjoy what the truckers are doing this week, because I said to my wife, I said this about probably 8 months ago. I don't think that the United States will ever progress to full civil war, because I feel very prescient right now. But I said because the truckers will just stop delivering to cities, and they'll realize that like they are dependent on truckers. And so watching this happen in Ottawa, I was like, she looked at me, she ran out of the room when she found out. She goes, "Oh my God." She said, "Junseth," because that's what she calls me. She was Junseth. She was, "I can't believe it. Like you were right." And I was like, yeah, like once the truckers understand that they have all the power, I think that there's an inevitability to the fact that we don't balkanize.
Well, there's one potential flaw in that theory. It's Elon Musk and his automated trucks.
Do you think Elon Musk hold on real quick. Do you think Elon Musk is on the side of the tyrannical government?
Yeah, but like it doesn't have to be Elon Musk. I'm really talking about self-driving trucks.
We're going to be 50. We're going to be 50 years from that, because
you have the last.
It's very simple.
You have the last mile issue, which is trucking in general. The last mile is.
But
trucking.
there's not just the last mile issue. The truckers themselves are in unions. Like the union will guard against the progress of like that sort of progress.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, well, me too.
I'm a unions fan,
and I think that is probably the biggest defender of basically the biggest stopgap between the United States and falling into war. I think that there's going to be something that happens before that, such as the truckers stop delivering to cities for 2 days, and cities just kind of go like, "Fuck, we are dependent on," because that's right now what has to happen. And it's very clear. Like anyone who's listening, who's a lefty, is going to strongly disagree with this, but the left is in a giant. They're living in a delusion, and they believe that they are the majority, and they are in a very concentrated spot in the United States.
The Clinton archipelago.
They're not farming.
The coastal elites.
Yeah, they're not farming. They're living in cities. Everyone surrounding them, all the areas surrounding them are red.
What happens when the trucks stop bringing shit to your city?
So, in terms of the US,
that's the point.
I've followed part of what's happening in Ottawa, but like, what's the impact been on deliveries? Are they seeing issues now? Are they seeing?
I don't know yet.
I'd want to know that.
I think that we might find that out in a week or two.
Yeah.
Right now it's mainly a headline political issue, and we don't know what's on the grounds happening in Ottawa. But
I think what's happening is that. And not to meander too much on this convo, but like, I think what's happening is that the truckers in Canada are inspiring global movements right now. So like,
there's a U.S. envoy on its way.
I don't think that we're going to just watch Canada experience shorts. Right. I think that the whole world's trucking industry is about to be like, we want out of this thing.
It's also like, the coastal elites have been putting down the truckers for a long time, and that's what the whole learn to code thing was about, which was like,
miners, I think.
Right. Well, it's all
same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. It's blue collar workers, and it's like, hey, you doofuses, why don't you go learn to code, right? And when the journalists started losing their jobs, the blue collar workers, the quote unquote doofuses, were telling the journalists, hey, why don't you go fucking learn to code? And they were being banned off Twitter for the same same sentiment, right? And so they're basically telling them like, you think you can do what I do?
Go learn to drive.
Go fucking do it. Go do it. Show me.
So do you see these as like the modern day revolution?
I see these as
non-violent revolution.
I see these as the bulwark against balkanization. Like I think that the trucking industry is the bulwark against the possibility that the United States falls into, like, sees the worst of what could come from these incredibly divisive times we're living through.
That's a good point.
And I think that what was necessary for my prediction to come true was that the truckers had to realize it. And that just happened. So I am of the official opinion now that the United States cannot fall into civil war because the truckers have figured out that they have all the power. So does Bitcoin balkanize the United States? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because geographically, it would be a disaster if California were left to its own devices and given over to China.
There's a Jordan Peterson, quote where he basically says like, you want to say that these men are the patriarchy or they're misogynistic or whatever, and it's like they're doing impossible things. They're under the roads, repairing the roads. They're up on the electrical grid, like repairing the electrical grid. Like they're doing impossible things all day long for like faint praise. And like, what happens if these men, these truckers, or the people who repair the electrical grid decide, hey, fuck you, I've had enough. I
always thought it would be funny to write a play about like what happens if men decide to stop going to work. Just like one day, the next day, like there's nuclear like fallout and everything else.
Right. I mean,
the sewage system collapses, bridges go down.
Your privileged existence where you get on your fucking smartphone and you tweet the hot take of the day, and you lambast the latest political opinion. It's all predicated on somebody crawling down in the muck in the sewer and making sure that shit runs appropriately.
Let me circle this back.
Hold on, we need to get Bitcoin in these people's hands. And I know it's happening. Happening in Canada because GoFundMe switched off the tap with the 7 million was raised, and now there's people raising Bitcoin. We're interviewing the guy in the trucker movement who switched the funding to Bitcoin, and we need to get Bitcoin in these people's hands.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I think that's great. Let me circle it back to the Metaverse stuff.
They should have their own labor held in their hands. That's the point.
Yeah.
Let me circle it back to the Metaverse stuff. Like, I think that this actually does strongly relate, because what it shows is that the world as a whole is real. We live in like meat space. We don't live in a fake reality that's designed for us by Mark Zuckerberg. And the consequences of the real world are significant. Like when you talk about balkanization or whatever the case is, the actual side effects, the consequences are not going to happen in a metaverse. They're going to happen here, right, in real life. And it does scare me a little bit to think of like a nihilistic generation being introduced to the conception that they wake up every morning and put on a computer hat, and that is the way that you live your life. That is the way that you become a man or a woman, or a transgender man or transgender woman. That you become your full person in this digitized meat space, and that is like anybody who doesn't go in there is a rube who's like living in a Model T.
Well, you can take it back to proof of work, right?
Yeah.
If you can, it's for most people, not everyone. For most people in the world to make it, they have to work hard.
You want an anchor in the real world, like proof of work. Yes.
Most people got to make the Matrix 1 instead of the Matrix.
I think that's an obscure point that's going to be lost, Peter. Like,
but let me come back to that. Let me be very clear. It's a trucker who's however many hours on the road, away from their family, working hard, and come back to them. It's I don't know. It's the guy out in the morning, laying the road. It's the guy who wants to be a surf champion who gets up every morning at 6 a.m. and goes out and rides the waves. It's a podcast to travel in the world and away from his kids and try. Like everybody outside of a few lucky people have to really work. But if you can go into this space and suddenly you don't have to work you want to be that champion surfer, you can jump on it.
You've done a bunch of podcasts right now.
Yeah.
You've done a bunch. What's the difference between meeting someone online versus someone in real life?
Me and Danny were talking about this yesterday. Firstly, we spend a lot of money to put on this show because Danny flies in from Australia.
Doesn't
I
look
fly
like
from the UK. Jeremy flies in.
Got him. Anyway,
we fly our guests in. We buy the equipment. We set it up. We get a nice. We spend money on this to put on a good production. We could save all that money, and I can go on Zoom and I can do not the exact. That's the point. I can record a show. It will get published, and the ads will sell. Right? But we do it like this because the quality is infinitely better.
And you can know that if you've done a podcast and. That's the thing. Like, people don't understand. There's a giant problem with like lag times. There's the conversation doesn't flow as well. There's all sorts of things that happen that you can't solve. These are theoretically, physically impossible to solve. Right? There's this great show, Avenue 5. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on HBO Max, and there's this. It's about a tour ship that goes off like a cruise ship into space, right? And they make they have this great bit where they're saying hello to these kids on Earth who are like at the main area where they launched them, and on the ship they go hello, right? And everyone in the ship's excited, and then like 45 seconds later they get the message at back at headquarters. And every time she asks a question, it's like a minute and a half to go back and forth. I mean, these are physics issues. You can't solve those. And so that's one of many that crops up in like a fake world. It trains your mind, it trains your body, it trains everything about you to behave differently. And so like I think that like the idea that people are going to start spending a lot of time online rather than in meet space, it becomes a giant problem. You have an entire group of people that are going to be basically developing in a world of conversation, developing in a world of relationships that are not rooted in real life.
Well,
we already have those people. They're called Gen Z.
Yeah, but this is the second iteration.
A real conversation has to be happening around the consequences, because we didn't know the consequences of social media when it first came. Now we understand the consequences of social media. I have a daughter.
Do we though?
Well, yes, but we know a lot of them.
Some of them.
But what I'm saying is, when Facebook first arrived and we were chucking sheep at each other, it was all fun. We didn't know what was coming, and now we're in a place where young girls who use Instagram are, there's a percentage chance they're high. And I'm living this with a daughter who's not allowed on Instagram. She doesn't know why. She is allowed TikTok, but there are issues we have to deal with, conversations that we have to have, and there's that peer pressure that she needs to be on it because her friends are on it. When the Metaverse comes on and the kids are going in, it's like you say you can't go in there, but all my friends, okay, we'll let you go in there. We don't fully know the consequences of that.
We ran the experiment already, right? We did
fully.
We did Second Life. We know how this goes. No, it absolutely was.
It's not at scale.
It was pretty scaled back when it started. There was a lot of people on it. Go look at it.
Everybody who was on Second
We're going to
Life
see
was a
all of the
loser.
exact same news articles come out. About this. When Second Life came out, it was, there's a college student who's making $100,000 a year making swords in Second Life. There's a college student who's selling land in Second Life for $100,000. And there were these stories in Second Life of like people going and doing this stuff. It's going to be the same thing in the Metaverse. You're going to have more people now jump in, and it's going to last 2 or 3 years. It's going to revert to sex and gambling, and then it's going to become a thing of the past. And people are going to talk about like, remember when we were in the Metaverse and how cool that was? And then we're going to have to wait another generation. And that next generation is going to do the same fucking thing.
I'm not so sure. And I tell you why I'm not so sure, because like you, I've got an Oculus. And I use it for certain things. Like the boxing.
Masturbating mostly, right?
No.
That's what I use it for.
Have you done the VR porn though?
Have you done the porn on it?
No,
It's
I've seen it once.
amazing.
That's
No.
fucking lies.
No.
You
I've seen-
definitely did it.
No, I've seen it once.
What was his name?
What was his name? Yeah, what was his name?
I've seen it once,
I'm in the Metaverse right now.
but my Oculus is used by my kids, and there is no way I'm going to be watching porn in the Oculus with
Listen,
my
I've
kids.
totally done VR
But-
porn.
but-
I'll admit it. I'll admit it. It's weird. It feels like the girl loves you. It's very strange. You know? Johnson's doing it right now.
The point I'm
Look at
going to
him.
get
Look
to.
at him. Look at him. Look at him. He's doing it.
The point I'm trying to get to, there's like the boxing game. You've played the boxing game?
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
so the boxing game for me, I fucking love it. I get in there and I feel like I'm in a boxing ring, and it's a good workout, and it's real, and it's cool. And things like that are only going to grow, and I'm going to want to keep using them. There's I don't see a scenario where I get bored of that. And I think for kids, there's going to be even better experiences.
Yeah,
It's
it's not sticky though. Is it sticky for you? Like, do you feel like I want it? Like, I have an Oculus. I have a couple of them. I have the one Johnson's wearing. I have the newer one or whatever.
I've got the original.
Yeah,
peasant
and
version.
is it sticky to you? Because it's not
Yeah.
sticky to me. I don't want to put it on all the time.
Yeah, but not often. It's like once or twice a week. But I like
Not
it.
even that for me. It's like occasionally.
But with kids, they go on fucking Roblox and they can Robux or whatever it is, and they sit on there all day and buying their giraffe animal to ride around. You put them in here and they're with their friends and they're going on roller coasters and whatever they're doing. I sound like an old person.
It'll
now.
be so
do.
much cheaper.
They're going
because they
on
can build roller coasters in the
You know,
Metaverse.
I mean, hey, there's the thing.
What we don't know,
They go to their virtual arcades.
what we don't know are the unintended consequences of this, like the impact. Does it?
Right.
Is the real
Right.
world when they come out so shit and depressing? Like they hate the real
Dude,
world.
They're already
I think it's actually worse. It's not about whether the world is depressing and sad and boring. It's about the dump of adrenaline you get when you're playing these things that are designed around rewards. And I think that is probably like what is preventing
the dopamine. Yeah.
Yeah, these kids are going into places that are literally designed as like reward engines. And then they enter the real world, and the real world is not designed like that unless you build your own version of it.
Right.
Like you've done this, Peter. You're building that. Like the more podcasts you do, the more money you make. The more interesting people you get, the more interesting you are. The more money you make. These things you've designed your world such that there's a reward mechanism for your behavior.
Yeah, but like I could massively exploit that further.
Absolutely.
I could have
But
launched.
the point isn't whether you could exploit it further. The point is that like the kids are going to be put into a world where there is just that reward mechanism, and then they're going to have to live in the real world where that reward mechanism is literally self-created.
Most people are nobodies, and that's the sort of cross they bear, is that they don't exist.
I'm going to be a Joel Osteen in the metaverse.
And so they look at, somebody who does exist, like yourself, somebody with hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, and they think that is what I should aspire to be. And they seek to become you, and then they become you, and they realize it wasn't all that it's cracked up to be or whatever. But
no one wants to be Peter.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's stupid to have 100,000 Twitter followers. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Doesn't confer value to your life. But if you're a nobody and nobody knows you exist, you think to yourself, well, that would be great. That would be highly desirable. Like I should do that.
There is a weird culture. I was saying this earlier. It's very easy now to be famous. It's very easy to
It's extremely easy.
It's extremely easy to be rich.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be rich because you're famous, and it's very difficult to be famous because you're rich.
Yes.
That's a brilliant quote.
Thank you.
We're very close to Calabasas where the Kardashians are.
And we're in a world now where everyone is striving for fame. They're not striving for riches. And there used to be a great satisfaction in
Well,
being...
no, they are striving for both. The crypto people are striving for riches.
They want
Sometimes,
clout,
but
they
like,
want clout more than they want riches. I agree with Junseth.
Clout is becoming the currency that people want to trade in.
Yeah.
And it's not even tradable. It's more they just want the clout. And so, like, I find that to be highly problematic that the world is being built by people who have not figured out yet that, like, it is very difficult to achieve wealth from fame. They want to be famous for the purpose of being famous. And then when they get to a certain age, let's say they've obtained that fame, they don't know what to do because now they have to do the other thing, which is to be rich. And they've probably sacrificed a lot to become famous. They probably have a lot of things on the internet. They've probably done things that like are going to make them a little bit harder to hire, whatever the hell it is. Mm-hmm. And they now have to go make money. And like they've been given the fame because it was easy. And now they want to be given the money. And because they're famous, and that's just not how it works.
No,
and it's an entire generation of people who have given up like their childhoods essentially, wherein they were just quietly playing soccer in the streets or like a hockey in the streets on their rollerblades, and now they spend all of their time trying to like do box openings for new products that they buy on YouTube
or NFT launches.
They're adults at 8. Yeah. They're doing like adult things. And that's a really dangerous place for kids to go because they don't have interests. They don't develop interests. And what's occurred is they've turned into nihilistic pricks. Mm. And like that for me is sort of my biggest fear of this metaverse stuff is that like we're taking a lost generation and just like putting them into a place where they're just going to be more lost.
So I agree with Junseth entirely, and I think that the biggest problem facing the younger generation, and in my generation, I'm a millennial. I'm like smack dab in the middle of millennialism or whatever. And I think from my generation on down, the problem that's facing us is pervasive nihilism because we have no hope for our future. And when you have no hope for your future, you won't build on a base of rational optimism. What you're going to do instead is YOLO.
You're trying to escape this reality.
Exactly. You're going to YOLO into a trade on a fucking NFT, which is a concept of digital art that you don't understand that you can sell to the next person who also doesn't understand it. It's a game of hot potato. And you're going to YOLO in on that to try and make a couple $1 million so you can have your fucking house in Malibu or your Lamborghini or whatever it is.
You see this with like an Andreessen Horowitz. What am I looking at?
Pass the whiskey over.
Say it again?
The whiskey.
Oh, you want it?
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't want me to have more.
No, I don't want him to have more.
You see, Andreessen Horowitz sees this and realizes that he can make a bunch of money
yes.
by investing in basically the escape.
Mark Andreessen, we're talking about here.
Yo,
Yeah.
I downloaded.
I'm blocked by him.
I was too, but then I got kicked off Twitter entirely.
I downloaded a couple of podcasts to listen to by A16Z on the way over here. I should.
Do they
tell you the
speed? Do they
title of them.
speed their podcasts up themselves? Because they seem to speak quick.
They might just speak quick.
So here's one: NFTs Explained by Andreessen Horowitz. Another one is Play to Earn Gaming and How It Works, Evolving in Web3.
The VCs are the problem here because like they have
Crypto
received
security and the new Web3
they have received
mindset.
zero consequences for the stuff that they've perpetuated.
NFT use cases
Like,
today and tomorrow.
The ICO years were filled with scams that we knew were scams. People going public with essentially public with offerings that were just bullshit.
Well, it was Jill. I mean, she's married now, so her name's changed. But Jill, what's her name? Jill. I want to say Jill Carter. One of my earliest interviews, she said the problem with ICOs is they get to raise their seed round and do their IPO at the same time without having proven product market
Correct.
fit. So people get rich without.
And by the way,
again,
Andreessen,
no proof of work.
The declination of the American economy, I have always marked as it starts at the moment Netscape went public without profits. That was when everything went fucked. Because before that, companies only went public when they had a proof of like revenue stream, proof of like essentially a way to generate money. And then Netscape broke that whole model. And now we have modern day IPOs, which are like all pre-revenue, all of them. And to me, like this is just an iteration of the model that Andreessen Horowitz did back in the 90s with Netscape. And they have zero consequences. And the best example, I mean, like I saw this, I never realized what a VC firm did until Circle. And you weren't here when Circle happened, I doubt it.
No, I was
there.
anyone
here? Were
with
you
Jeremy
here?
Allaire.
Yeah.
Were you here when it started?
Yeah, I was.
Do you remember Reddit?
In fact, I bought Bitcoin on Circle, and I wrote in the notes section, "Fuck you, Mike Hearn." It was when the hernia happened.
Do you remember the first day or what happened in the lead up to Circle?
No. What are you alluding to?
Circle was the most hyped company that has ever happened in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They were just an exchange. But in the lead up to Circle, like there was this opinion, this pervasive opinion amongst all 37 Bitcoiners that everything was about to change. Circle was going to be the most innovative company ever.
Yep.
And it was a message that was being touted on Reddit. And if you went on and said anything negative about it, there was like an army of people that would come on and tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, you're wrong. And it was the first time that I had ever seen, like realized that I was in the middle of a propaganda campaign by a venture capital company.
Yeah.
And this is what I've seen now for many years is that these venture capital companies
even a very good
don't give a shit.
And now we have Katie Horn raising $900 million for a Web3 fund. We have Chris Dixon. I mean, the really strange thing about Chris Dixon.
I don't want to disparage Chris Dixon, but Chris Dixon.
Hold on. Let me finish because I just want to finish speaking. Chris Dixon, the thing that I find so interesting about his thing is not just that he's spinning the Web3 narrative, which I fundamentally disagree with, and he won't discuss on the podcast. He replied, then he won't. But the biggest thing is he's now shitting on all their companies they invested in because now they want to move to what they're calling this decentralized future, Web3. They've redefined what Web3 was predicted being.
You and I know that they don't want to move to that. They just see an opportunity of money making.
Well, and it's narrative building. They're able to build narratives, right? Like,
but that's the Web3 narrative, the Metaverse narrative. Like, this is the thing. Like, Facebook changes its name
Chris
to
Dixon
Meta.
used to be one of us, by the way. He used to be one of us.
But Facebook changes its name.
Yeah, so did Balaji.
Chamath was never one of us.
Balaji's still one of us.
Well,
Balaji was never one of us.
Balaji's one of us.
No, he's not.
I would defend Balaji.
I will not.
Balaji
went around and he showed basically a PowerPoint to people to earn money for a fund that basically was doing perpetual motion. And he's living on the lie that 21 was a profitable company.
Or Earn.com was a profitable company, which it was not, obviously.
Right. You know,
not every
vanity
like people have ideas that don't work and they don't work out.
But not a lot of people get $100 million exit.
But Balaji has also Balaji has also had successes.
No, he has not.
Yes, he has.
No,
he
has
sold.
not.
He has.
No, he has not.
And also,
Earn.com was a fucking failure, and everybody knows
I don't believe it anymore. anymore though, Peter, because like Earn.com was so transparently
failure.
Transparently a failure that was bought for $50 million or
Everybody
whatever
knows
by
it. Everybody
Coinbase.
knows it.
It was
It's
so
obvious.
transparently just like money changing hands from the left to the
let's not
right
huff the
that
farts.
I don't
Yeah.
believe that any of his other exits were legitimate anymore.
Let's not huff the farts at this.
But it doesn't
You know what I
matter.
mean? Like
It doesn't really matter.
it doesn't matter.
The
Don't shush me.
No, I'm just
Balaji
saying
is
we're
smug as
talking
fuck.
we're talking
You know
over
that.
we're talking
You know
over
that.
each other. That's the
Anyway.
only thing I'm trying to stop happening. I will defend Balaji because I think he's a
Because
person
you
with
want
good.
him back on your show. I get
No,
it.
it's not because I want him back on my
It is
show.
what it is.
I'll have him on my
Me
show.
and Junseth don't have to defend him. We think what he did was kind of
I will criticize Chris Dixon heavily, and I want him on my show.
Chris Dixon and Balaji
I
are
will-
the same.
I will-
I
I
wouldn't accuse Peter of that. But I just think we just disagree
I will
fundamentally.
Incentives are incentives.
I will
you know what
I
mean?
will criticize Bukele, and I badly want interview 3 in, but I will criticize him at risk of getting that. So that's a false accusation. I like talking to Balaji because I think he is somebody who has a number of interesting ideas. My only one criticism of Balaji is I don't think he always knows which are the best ideas, and I think that's why he was good in A16Z, because he was an idea machine and they knew which ones to run with. And I'd say that to him. I don't think he would take that as a massive criticism, and I like his ideas. I
I've
like
only
the way
had
he thinks around the
one
world.
personal conversation with him. So I mean, the fact that you've had more, I'll
Well, he made a
defer.
massive effort
Defer in some
during,
ways.
during COVID. He made a massive effort to try and navigate through all the misinformation, say this is the reality of what's happening. So I like the guy. I just disagree with him on altcoins.
Well, Balaji's entire thesis of voice versus exit, I think, is bullshit. I think it was a terrible narrative. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know the narrative.
it was from back in the day. Junseth knows it. It was around the 21 and Co. You know,
I just thought. I mean, my personal belief is that 21 Co is such a
gibberish. Yeah.
such an insane project that was obvious. I mean, like I had a toast back then talking about a post back then talking about like the idea of having your toaster mine and just calling it out for what it was, and it was just obviously ridiculous. And then I had a personal beef with them because what happened is a bunch of people went on to Earn.com and posted as me. And then they started banning Junseth from Earn.com. And then Earn.com, which was supposed to be a private platform where you like encourage people to email you, they then published on their Twitter all of the emails that had been supposedly me.
Listen, I didn't start this trying to shit talk Balaji. But what I was trying to do is lay bare the incentives.
The overall point is that Earn was a failure. I'll defer to you on the rest of them.
So on the thing about Earn.com, yes, it was a failure. Yes, it appears that it was
$100 million failure.
It was a buyout to protect an investment by A16Z. I think that's pretty transparent and obvious. At the same time, there was actually something really interesting in Earn, and it's just
There wasn't.
let me just finish. There was a very interesting thing in it.
I used it. Did you ever use it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So
What
I'm
do
gonna
you
say-
think that was interesting about it?
Well, as somebody who gets Danny, how many emails a day do we get? 30.
So people being able
Bear
to
with
email
me.
you for money.
We get maybe 30, 40 emails a day. Then you go into LinkedIn, and I probably get 50 messages a day. The LinkedIn ones don't get read because it's a waste of time, and the most of the email ones I don't even look at anymore. Danny looks at them because it's just too much processing power. But if it's a bit like what Adam Back designed with proof of work, is that you could get rid of spam by making people pay. Making people pay to contact people to get a lot of emails, there's a lot of sense to that. I withdrew Bitcoin from Earn.com because I made people pay to contact me on that. That is a good idea. It wasn't successful, but there's something within that idea. Let me finish. Let me finish. And that's a different from criticize. You can criticize that and say, look, it failed, but there was something in that idea.
Correct.
But it's a different criticism for 21 and Co because that fundamentally maybe couldn't have ever worked. And they're two different things.
Earn is a good idea at $1 million. The reason it's a failure is because it's not a $60 million idea, right? That's very obvious.
Yes.
I once messaged Balaji himself personally on Earn. I said, what's your personal percentage allocation to Bitcoin? I just would like to know. And he goes, I don't disclose that. But he still took my $20 that it cost me to email him. You know what I mean?
He doesn't disclose that. That's the rules of the game.
What a piece of shit that guy is.
That's the rules of the game.
Ridiculous. Like, well, yeah, but you would actually take the $20?
Yeah,
you're not going to answer the email, but you still took the $20
He
from
answered
me?
the email.
It's ridiculous.
He did answer the email.
He answered the email.
It's ridiculous.
So he did
That's ridiculous.
He did the work that you
Fucking
paid
ridiculous.
for. So,
It's
but I will
ridiculous.
defend him because,
I'll accept that.
The other reason
that's ridiculous. You know it. You both know it.
The other reason I'll defend him is I talk to Balaji a lot. I talk to him weekly, and there are probably at least once a month We'll have a phone call and I'll tell him about ideas I've got or things I'm working on. He always gives up his time as a busy person, and he's given me good advice. So I will defend him. I can't discuss or defend 21 Code because I don't know enough about it. From what I've heard,
it was a shit show.
From what I've heard, it was a poor idea that could never have worked. Earn.com for me was a good idea. I used it, just not enough other people used it.
I agree with you on Earn.com. Earn.com is a great idea at $1 million valuation. It's not a great idea at 60 or 100. And that, that to me was the big thing. But how do we get off on this tangent?
Vanity investment. I don't know.
But these rabbit holes are interesting.
They're always funny. They're very interesting.
I don't want to shit talk
venture capital.
Yeah, I don't want to shit talk Balaji, but I do want to shit talk A16Z.
Chris Dixon. I
think Chris Dixon's the stooge.
The venture capital in the space has been responsible for huge amounts of the growth of Ethereum. Number one.
Yes.
And number two, the growth of absolute bullshit
because they can't grow their investment. It's quickly.
They've never had such a good opportunity for quick exits. It's never existed.
Here's the phrase they use: short time to liquidity. That's the phrase they use.
Yeah.
That's the phrase that means we are going to dump on top of retail investors, and we didn't give a fuck who feels what kind of way about it.
Yeah.
And that's what it means. That's what that phrase means.
And to your earlier question, Peter, about whether this space should be regulated, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I want to see stopped. That's the kind of stuff that really bothers me.
Well, I don't like it.
Me too.
Carl Salami at Multicoin Capital. Is it Multicoin Capital? Now, I've interviewed him twice. Once in person. I'm pretty sure it was in the A16Z office. So I think they learned about this from Multicoin and seeing how well Multicoin have performed. Because, yes, Multicoin had that very good, I think it was a Litecoin short at one point, but they've had some very successful investments. What somebody told me, their investment in Solano is the most successful VC investment ever.
I think it's pronounced Salernos, but
Solano and Ethernet.
Salerno, yeah.
Solano and Ethernet.
Salami?
Ebernet, yeah.
Carl Salami.
Carl Salami, Ebernet, Salernos. Continue.
Yeah, and I think because it also feels like in the tech world, it feels like there's not as many opportunities available. There's a lot of funds that are fighting over investments to get.
You have to realize
there's a lot of funds fighting over investments to get into it. I know that because I've had funds reach out to me and say, "Hey, Pete, can you get us into deals? And if so, you'll get a percentage," which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think I'm not doing it yet, but that's fine. But I know there's a fight to get onto deals. I also feel like the majority of things on the internet that are going to be invented have been invented. There is a slowdown now in new opportunities. But crypto is this thing where you can get the up curve. But the up curve accelerates so much more because you can get on Solano at 0.02 of a cent, and then it runs up to $200.
I think the thing that people, look, we live in a world where Dogecoin's worth more than Starbucks, or at least was, right? That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
But it is worth more than Starbucks.
Not now.
It was,
but it was for a while.
But anyone with half a brain knows that is not. You're comparing apples with tractors.
I would have agreed with you until I hear people like Tim Pool talking about how Dogecoin to the moon, right? People that I would generally think of as rational, telling me that Dogecoin is money and Bitcoin is store of value, something like that. Just idiots. I watched this for months as people were telling me this, and I could have refuted them, and they would have rejected my refutations. But I think that if this gets regulated away, if the not crypto or blockchain, but if the bad acting VC bullshit gets regulated away, that's the end of things like Ethereum. That's the end of the NFT space. That's the end of a lot of these the cyclical pumps that we have.
It will pop up in a different way.
Yeah, but it won't be as big.
It will be good
because
for Bitcoin.
The narrative will be gone.
And it will be good for Bitcoin.
There will be
the narrative builders
will be a new narrative.
The narrative will be built organically rather than by a venture capital company which sits down and storyboards it.
I don't believe that. I think that every narrative that exists in the world exists because a large entity promoted it. That's what I feel.
Which large entity promoted Bitcoin?
Well,
we developed all of the narratives.
We promoted Bitcoin as
large entity.
We promoted Bitcoin as the intransigent minority. It was the NSA, bro. No, listen.
But that's the nature of decentralized systems. Pirate Bay,
there's only
Kazoo,
one
Napster.
fucking decentralized system. It's Bitcoin. Everything else is a lot.
Torrents are pretty decentralized.
BitTorrent,
Pirate Bay is pretty decentralized now.
It's not. It's centralized. It's centralized over whack-a-mole. Here's the thing. Is there's one there's one use case that we found for decentralization. It's Bitcoin.
2.
The idea that
File sharing.
That's fine. Bitcoin is a version of file sharing. The idea that we are going to decentralize all the things is fucking stupid.
that is true.
It's fucking
HODL,
stupid.
HODL, that is true. I think that there has come a narrative as a result of Bitcoin that is beneficial for the VCs, which is that decentralization is a good in itself. And that's not true.
Yeah, no, that's fake.
Well, and this is why when you go on Clubhouse every day trying to educate people, which I commend you for, and it's like trying to save the lemmings from going over the cliff, I at the same time feel like Chris Dixon needs challenging a lot more. But you go into his comments and there'll be a handful of Bitcoiners saying, stop talking bullshit. And there's a lot of people go, yeah, woohoo, supporting this. And he's pushing that hard. And
He has
Chamath now.
credibility. He has credibility.
And do you know what was a real eye-opener? Is that podcast that Chamath does with those other guys. Where
All in.
The Uyghur stuff?
I think it's the
all-in
most
pod.
embarrassing, arrogant podcast out there. The
Oh,
shit
it's
is
incredibly cringe.
vulgar and
Yeah.
gross and disgusting.
Yes.
But all these people have been corrupted, and now they're having this huge influence over where the web goes.
These guys were literally laughing about dumping Solana.
Yeah.
I disagree. They don't have a lot of influence in where the web goes. They have a lot of influence because they have money, and they have it generally in society. But like where the web goes is pretty organic.
Okay, yeah, it is. But okay, they have a lot of influence over trying to define
it's
where it's
partially
going.
organic.
They're trying to redefine. So for me, because I used to have a web design agency.
Yeah.
Okay, you said Web 1 was running your server. Me, Web 1 was static websites. And then Web 2 was when websites became interactive. As you would type in...
I thought Web 2 had mostly to do with like bubble logos.
But as you would type in the
Web 2 is more about you being... you're the product.
Yeah, but you would type into a search results and it predictive search. It was Ajax. It was more, and Web 3 was meant to be about the semantic web and the linking of data.
Correct.
But now Web 3 has been redefined as the decentralized web with a bunch of products that aren't fucking decentralized.
Which is
Correct.
fake. It's fake. The whole thing is fake. It's
he is trying to redefine what
You're
Web 3
correct
is
about
and
that.
pushing it in a direction which is fundamentally bad for the users.
We've heard the Web 3 narrative though since like 2015 from the ether heads, the meth heads.
Ethernet.
and it's never been true.
Well, it's not only never been true. It's always been this like they've tried to make fetch a thing. You know, Web
you can't
3.
sit with us. You can't sit with us.
Yeah, they've tried to make fetch a thing, and that to me is like really, really interesting that they've pushed the narrative and they've changed it until like now I hear people promoting this in places like Clubhouse or other places where they're like talking about Web 3.0, and they're literally just repeating. They're full on repeating narratives given to them by Andreessen Horowitz or any of these big investment firms. They're just repeating narratives. It's very uninteresting to me, and I'm kind of like if a person knew they were just repeating a narrative, what would they think of themselves? Because usually they tend to believe, I think, that they're coming up with unique thoughts. And I
don't
think,
understand.
Yeah,
You're a boomer.
I'm a boomer. Essentially, they give me my own argument, which is the meme, right? I just heard about Bitcoin and I'm here to fix it. They give me back that, but in like the Ethereum way.
Well, you dealt with this all on Bitcoin Uncensored.
Yeah, constantly.
He invented that meme.
You can go back to, I mean, the one that always kills me is the one with Perian Boran.
Yeah.
Where you completely
It's the best
destroyed. If anyone says to me about voting on the blockchain, I'm like, I've got a podcast for you. Go and listen to this. So you've been dealing with bullshit longer than most people.
That's still a mainstream narrative, by the way. The voting.
I know.
All of these they come back every time. It's the same narratives. Nothing changes. In Bitcoin, what happens is you come here, you are told things, you believe it, you don't know how to parse truth because it's a tech you don't understand.
Yeah.
And you just accept them. And I mean, I did the same thing when I got here. Like I remember at Bitcoin BTC, whatever it was, Mo Levin's conference in Miami, the first in 2013 when Ethereum was announced. That was the same conference that BitShares was announced. And Chris and I walked away from the BitShares party, which was in the lobby, and it was just hot girls and dumpy butt Larimer in the lobby, basically talking about how BitShares was like a bank. And we walked away from there. I remember Dan Larimer would stand there and talk to people, and he would have a crowd of 30 people surrounding him, and he would be talking. He's a tall guy, and just talking. And I would listen to it, and I was, like, I don't know what he's saying. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it at the time.
But it sounds amazing.
But it didn't sound amazing to me. It was just like complex.
Yeah.
And people are drawn.
Complexity theater.
People are drawn to those who speak in words that sound coherent that they don't understand. It is the basis of religious thinking in some ways. And I saw that. Like, there were 30, 40 people surrounding him. And I mean, like, you want to know what's going to pump next, just go to a conference and look for that guy.
Dude, I was at Art Basel in Miami, desperately avoiding the NFT space, and then ended up being invited to, I think it was a Coinbase party. I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll go. Might see some friends. I literally saw one dude I know, and it was just full of kids and like skateboarders. I think Gary Vee was there. Like, all these people partying away. And I was like, I was lost. I was lost in this moment going, fuck. What?
You don't have any credibility.
Well, no,
there.
but I was
you have no credibility because you're not Gary Vee.
But I can't do anything in this room. I can't convince these people they're wrong, and I can't add to the conversation. So I just left, and I was like, fuck, what's happening with this shit?
There's nothing interesting going on right now in Bitcoin. I mean, there is in Bitcoin. Lightning Network is very interesting. Do you run a node?
A Lightning node?
Yeah.
I've got, yes, but I don't really use it. I've got the Umbro node, so I've got
let
Lightning.
me know. We'll connect. I'll connect a channel to you, and you can play with it. I have a routing node now. It does very well. I've been playing with it and trying it. And, I make like $4 a day. I'm doing very well.
That could be $40 a day.
That's right. But I'm learning about what's going on in Bitcoin. And, like, the stuff that's going on in Bitcoin is incredible. It's really like amazing development that's just kind of happening slowly under the radar.
It's high-level engineering.
Yeah,
which is it.
And these other chains are like the fun chains, and people are going and having fun on them. But this, like, I'm kind of baffled by where we are, because when we started this, it was the meat space of geeks and idiots and social rejects, the men who couldn't get women, the rebels, the crypto punks, just awkward men and transgendered women, to be honest. That's really what it was.
People have always felt kind of different, kind of isolated, didn't probably play in
people
the
who
sports team.
Pee in bottles and stack them in their rooms. Like, these are the kinds of people.
I mean, I never did that.
I mean, you didn't, but, you haven't been to my house. My wife had to stop me. But this is the kind of people that were here in early Bitcoin. And to watch, like, crypto become cool has been interesting from the perspective of a person who came here when, like, this is all about social isolation and those who were socially isolated. It wasn't that it was about social isolation, but it was run by those who were socially isolated beings. And to watch it become cool and for people to enter the space has been just a fucking trip, because it's become a thing that, like, people want blockchains so that they can have fun. And these are not fun things. Like, could you imagine this kind of fervor happening in the 90s around the MySQL database, or like Oracle DB or something like that? Could you imagine?
But maybe it did.
It didn't.
Well, I mean, what's that TV show? The one about when they first start inventing computers. There's like the hot chick who works in it. I found out recently. Chick is socially unacceptable here.
Oh, goddamn it! What the fuck is the name?
Female.
It's like they made like 5 series. It's
Birthing person.
Halt and Catch Fire.
Birthing person.
So Halt and Catch Fire implies actually, no, it was exciting. And maybe it was
exciting to the social rejects. Like, it never crossed containment.
Because they couldn't own any part of it. We can own part of this. They couldn't own part of that.
I think that's probably true, but, like, it's weird to watch it cross containment, and it's weird to watch. It's also very weird and in fact disturbing to watch 13-year-olds think that they're getting rich. It's really disturbing. They're not getting rich by something they've done. They're not getting rich by contributions.
Luck and timing.
They're getting rich by luck and timing.
But they're not actually.
Well, some are. Some are
getting
getting
very rich by luck and timing.
No,
they're not.
Some are.
They are not.
Who's the kid? The youngest millionaire? He advertised himself at, like, he was 14 or 15 or whatever.
Oh, Eric something.
Yeah, whatever his name was.
That kid's a fucking
which was hilarious, because there were a lot of kids like that, and he's the one that, like, decided to use it as PR.
I had a buddy.
But
he's a Bitcoin buddy. He described he was in on BitConnect in 2017. And I said, "Oh man, that sucks. You were in on BitConnect." He described the mentality for me, and he goes, "No, man, it was fucking awesome. I went to school every day in middle school, and I was the shit, and I lorded it over these fucking losers. And then, one day it sucked, and I lost all my money. But, like, for the rest of the school year, I was the king, And I was like, that's the NFT marketplace.
Well, look, I have it with my son. Like one of his friends always wants to talk to me because he's a crypto kid.
Yeah.
And he tells me he owns a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of Doge, a bit of Shibu Inu or something or other. And I'm like, dude, sell it all, get into Bitcoin. He's not going to do it. He laughs at me.
Shibu.
He laughs
You're a
at
boomer.
Yeah, I'm a
Shibu
boomer.
Inu.
Even my son at one point, he's like, Dad, I've designed. Hey, he texted me, he said, Dad, you got any ETH? And I was like, no. He's like, you don't got a little bit? I was like, no, I don't know any. He's like, I was like, why? He's like, oh, we've designed an NFT. We want to. I don't know what he wanted to do.
Shibu Inu.
And I was like, son, I'm so disappointed.
That article you guys sent me. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Web3.
The Moxie.
Yeah.
The Moxie article.
It's a good article.
I don't know
Tell
if
me
you read
about
this.
that. I didn't see this article.
It's a phenomenal article.
Tell me. What's the TLDR?
Well, real simple. He talks about like what he saw in the NFT space, and what was hilarious was like the amount of centralization in the NFT stuff. He designed his own NFT, and the NFT was designed to show up differently on OpenSea and all of these other NFT markets. Like each one of them had a different picture.
It showed up like a shitcoin emoji.
Yeah, but when it came to your wallet, it was a pile of poo.
And then when OpenSea found out that he had done this, where you could view it in different ways across different platforms, they banned it.
They banned it and they removed it from.
You shouldn't be able to ban stuff in the centralized.
What?
The
Decentralized
entirety.
world.
Well, nobody. See, this is the thing. Decentralization is a good. Like that's what everyone believes, but they don't want their things to be decentralized, or they don't actually view it as a priority. So you have MetaMask, which is a completely centralized system. You have OpenSea, which is a completely centralized system. All of the things that run
You have
the things they
Ethernet, which
love,
is completely centralized.
centralized.
You have Solana, which is completely centralized.
Binance.
I think, and that's where they bring up it might have been Salami who brought it up the first time. The decentralization is a spectrum, which fucks me off because it's gaslighting people into believing.
Well, decentralization is a spectrum, but that's not really a valid thing to say.
No, it's not valid.
Because Bitcoin is more decentralized, let's say, than file sharing.
Well, no, but I've always said the most important thing is directionally where is it heading. Bitcoin is decentralized, but it's directionally trying to always become more decentralized, whereas Ethereum is directionally becoming more centralized.
I don't even think that's the correct way to frame it, though.
I do.
And well, let me walk you through my framing.
Okay.
My framing is what is like Bitcoin itself is not decentralized. Bitcoin is not decentralized. None of these are decentralized. Certain things about them are decentralized.
Yeah.
We decentralize the things that need censorship resistance. So what do we decentralize? We decentralize mining, which is validation. We decentralize node operation, which is validation and consensus, right? We are, mining transaction ordering and such.
We're trying to decentralize the contributor base.
Well, the decentralization of contributions in some ways. Decentralization
are
probably.
We are.
But and in torrents,
Not really.
what is decentralized? What is decentralized is the files themselves, right?
Yes.
Lots of people can hold them, and
you can seed them,
and you have an anchor file, like you can seed them to people. So but what else? You don't need like everything in a system to be decentralized. Decentralization isn't to the common good. It's not a good thing just because it's decentralized. What you need is you need to find out what parts of the project need censorship resistance, and that's what you need to decentralize.
Okay.
This is the problem with OpenBazaar. OpenBazaar decentralized. I mean, I don't even know what.
Can you
they
go
did.
back and explain OpenBazaar? Most people don't know it.
Yeah, OpenBazaar was a project that, for many years, I had to hear was the greatest thing in the space. It was a marketplace. It was a marketplace for Bitcoin sales, and then eventually became a marketplace for all kinds of coin sales. But like a marketplace for like whatever you wanted to sell, just like an online e-commerce store kind of thing. But I could never get out of Brian, the creator of OpenBazaar, Brian Hoffman, why it was that we needed OpenBazaar when you had Tor. We have IP. Like we don't need a separate protocol to run like basically what amount to websites on. They decentralized the wrong thing, and what happened? It didn't work.
Well,
I like Brian.
The actual sense,
I like Brian a lot.
I like Brian.
Me
His
too.
project was dumb.
Me too. The actual sense back then in the community, though, you have to admit,
It was
was
shitty Shopify.
well, it was the idea that OpenBazaar was going to be a legalized version of Silk Road.
No,
that was
but the dumb thing
I
about
know
that is
that
the
wasn't
internet.
real. I know that wasn't real,
The
but-
internet is the legalized version of the internet.
Right.
And you can do illegal things on the internet. So, like,
Yes.
if you are running a store on OpenBazaar that's selling cocaine, that store is going to be doing illegal things. Just like if you run a website on the dark web, and you put on it art, you sell your like fine art on it. That's not illegal. You can do that. But when you sell cocaine, you can't. It's just because it's on the dark web doesn't make it illegal. So like it was a nonsense claim that the entire project made, and I could never figure out why they thought they had to develop this separate protocol apart from like
A16Z gave them money.
I think it's idea first, solution second, and it's like once you start
problem later.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean I think they identified the problem and they came up with a solution, but when they went to actually build out the solution, you realize, oh crap, this isn't going to make sense. That can happen. That's true. And that can happen. And that there's, I still admire him for trying. Like I said, I like Brian a lot. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good actor who just had a project that didn't work.
He is.
He's not
No, he's a good guy.
I find him to be a very honorable and good person.
Yeah, a good actor.
I agree
his idea didn't work. Whereas we're surrounded
but his idea was, in my opinion, his idea obviously wasn't going to work. Like
it didn't work.
Yeah, but it might be obvious to you.
Right, and it was then.
It wasn't to me.
It was
Really? No.
No, it was obvious at the time. It was.
It was not obvious to me.
But we all wanted to, I mean, maybe Johnson didn't want to, but I wanted to believe it was going to work. I wanted to.
Yeah.
When Amir Taki presented it, I thought it was, and early on, before it was presented, like I actually was on stage in Miami doing a thing talking about Open Bazaar, and I thought it would be a really cool thing. But when I realized it was just another protocol, that it was just basically the darknet, I was just astounded that was the idea, because it was just reinventing the internet we already had. They built a whole architecture around it. It was amazing. But that's been the ideas in the space for the last 10 years. Lending was early. BTC Jam is a good example.
Oh my God, I lost a whole Bitcoin.
There you go.
I did.
Yeah.
You know how stupid I was? I put a whole Bitcoin.
Oh, it was $7 at the time when it collapsed. It wasn't that much.
It was $200 at the time. It's $40,000 now. It was painful. It's painful to lose a whole Bitcoin on.
Yeah, no, it was.
Fucking BTC Jam. Jesus Christ.
BTC Jam.
Were you here for BTC Jam?
Nope.
He wasn't, but it was painful. That website was painful.
I mean, I've had many things that I've put money into, and ICOs I put whole Bitcoins or 2 or 3 Bitcoins into. I look back and think, holy shit.
It's like that open dime. You don't know how to get Bitcoin off that,
Danny will do that. Yeah, Danny will figure out. It's all right.
You teach him.
It's when we find out if you really put it on there.
It's on there.
I know
you don't know how to get it off. But
I'm gonna love winning another Bitcoin if you know shit.
You've never sweeped a Bitcoin. This guy's never sweeped a Bitcoin. It's fucking.
I'm gonna laugh when he takes more Bitcoins from you.
Never sweeped a private key.
He gave you a great deal. I don't know why you wouldn't take it.
I think it was a much better deal.
Yeah, Bedford,
the whole season
has to win.
To come top.
That's a
Do you know
big.
this motherfucker has $1 million?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. In a league that has like nothing.
So, give you a good example.
Most of these guys are plumbers, like the guys that play for the other teams.
That's not relevant to the point.
It's true though.
But what their career is not relevant. We have in the division we're in now.
They beat their wives and they do plumbing on the weekends.
They don't. We have the best budget within our division right now.
Yeah,
we lost 4-1 the other night.
Right, because you suck.
So I'm just telling you. You turn down a way better, like a one-off. I've got a much better chance than over a whole season.
I'm going to take the one off. You know why?
Right.
You know why?
Because you're dumb.
No, because I'm going to. I want to show up there in Bedford.
Why don't you do half a Bitcoin on each?
No, we're going to do a whole Bitcoin. I'm going to show up in Bedford. I'm literally going to fly there, and we're going to go. Let's go. Roll the fucking dice.
Direct to Bedford Airport.
You got to take. Do they have an airport? You have an airport?
I think we got one in Cranfield.
I was planning on coming into Heathrow, but whatever.
I'll pick you up.
I guess if you got an airport, that's fine. I'll go there.
I'll pick you up.
All right, that's weird, but it sounds.
It's weird that I picked you up from the airport.
I'm in.
All right, we'll figure that. How are you going to choose which game?
I'm just going to pick one at random. Whichever one the papers say you're going to lose.
We will not be in the papers.
The Bedford papers.
Okay. Do you pick the game at the start of the season before any games are played?
I'm going to.
I don't know enough about football, but sure, maybe I would.
I think that's.
I don't think he knows how football's played.
I know. I don't.
At the end of the game, even if you lost, you could probably tell him you won.
You're giving me,
and he wouldn't even know.
This is a more easy win than fucking Biden.
I used to be a striker here in America, where we call it soccer. But yeah, I mean, I used to used to play football, and I know how to play it.
You want a contract?
I find that unbelievable.
I would love a contract. No, I was.
Honestly, once I have 2 Bitcoin off you, at that point, the price of Bitcoin. Well, I mean, essentially, you bought me the football club.
No, I mean,
Thank you.
essentially, I'm
Thank
going
you.
to take back my 1 Bitcoin that you have. You know,
I don't see it happening.
I mean, that half of Bitcoin that's on the open dime. There's no way you can fucking get it. First of all, Danny's gonna have to help you with
Danny's
it.
gonna do it.
If Danny can't do it, you're fucked. You're fucked.
Danny will do it.
Hopefully, Danny knows.
He'll
what he's doing.
probably can't charge me a commission. Yeah, Ben will do it. Yeah, Ben Prentice is on our team.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
You didn't think that one through, did you?
Well, hey, I mean, I'm just saying. I know that you can't access it, which is hilarious.
Do you know, I'm gonna fucking do it.
You're not gonna do it.
There's literally a PDF online that tells you how to do it.
He does, he can plug in that and it'll tell him how to do it.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a README on the fucking open dime.
I bet you a Bitcoin, I can do it within the next hour.
Take that bet, HODL.
I actually
Take
kind
that
of want to take
Yeah,
that
do it.
bet.
Take it,
I don't
HODL.
think he can do it.
I'll do the same bet.
You want to do 2 shots and then tell me you can do it.
Yeah. Do you know what would have been that interesting bet? I would have won off you again, but I think was that good bet when I offered you the double quits on the under over at 100 when it was obvious it wasn't going to 300.
That wasn't going to happen though. That's why I didn't take it.
Why do you think it didn't? What do you think happened this year?
So-
What do you think's changed?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, not to get like too far off topic, but I think that the China mining ban was a big reason why we didn't see the price levels we were expecting to see. And the macro environment. I mean, you know, it's just Bitcoin's a big boy now. It's a $1 trillion asset, and it responds to macro forces unlike anything it ever has in its history. And
Or is too mainstream to have those massive run-ups now?
nah, it will still have big run-ups. I mean, there's 100x left on the board, 100x, but it's not gonna be intrinsic the way it used to be in the early days. It's gonna respond to macro forces for sure.
Anyway, we should probably circle back.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
Back to the metaverse. Eric, what do you think of the metaverse? Do you want to come around? Do you actually want to say? Why we got you here? Let's get you. Come on. Grab a chair.
Eric can give his take on the metaverse.
As he's here, we'll get Eric
The
in.
fun part about the metaverse is that it doesn't actually exist. I don't know if I've gotten that out
that's
yet,
true.
but it doesn't exist. It's not real.
Other side of me.
You know, what I thought was interesting about that article
Other
was
side.
the concession of the writer that the metaverse is going to be around a while because
Right.
it's achieved enough momentum.
Yes.
Which I think that's
Silly.
kind of your position, Peter, is that the metaverse is going to be around a while because you think it's achieved.
Well, you have to define what the metaverse is first. So what is
Yeah,
it? And then you can say
Well,
what
everybody knows what the metaverse is. It's some version of Ready Player One.
I mean, I think what they're going to end up defining it as is every video game, right? They're going to say, I was playing in the Fortnite metaverse or
Yeah.
the CSGO metaverse or whatever.
That's Metaverse I.
Yeah, at which point I think it exists forever.
And does there become common protocol? Like the
But that's not the pitch right now.
But does there become like common protocols so other people can plug into that metaverse? You can have multiple experiences in one. But Eric Yates, who we just did a show with, the author of Bitcoin, the
Yeah.
seventh property, stunning guest.
Nice.
I know nothing about the metaverse. Look, I mean, I don't know how a lot of this stuff is defined, but when I think about conceptually, like long term, the idea that if we can link up a sensory experience to a digital world, that's like, 50, 60 years out, some sort of potential alternative that people might opt into. It's easier to manipulate a digital environment than it is a physical.
See, this idea is true. And at the heart of every bullshit scam bubble, there is a true idea.
Right.
And what Eric just said is true. And the true idea is that, we are going to want to have these like human perceptual sensory environments in a digital landscape, right? True. Mm-hmm. But it's the same way that like the internet was going to change our lives, but pets.com wasn't necessarily a good investment. So just because human beings are going to want to live in virtual environments doesn't mean your fucking Bored Ape has any fucking value. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the point.
Also the extent to which humans want to enter the metaverse, quote, right? Like, I don't think like satisfactorily. I don't think that there's satisfaction in the life, like the digital life. Like you're gonna live a life that is essentially without accomplishment.
That is so boomer, man.
Yeah.
But it depends. It depends if it becomes your life or it's just a tool for entertainment.
If it's just a tool for entertainment, that's one thing. But like, that's not the pitch.
That's not the long-term pitch, but the steps
pitch,
to get there.
The pitch is that you plug yourself into the matrix, and that's where you live. Yeah. You live in a tiny little apartment in New York City.
It's Ready Player One.
It's 3x3, and you get into your little standing pod.
You have an omnidirectional treadmill.
You live in the property, the billion-dollar property you purchased in the metaverse, and you walk around in it while you're in your 3x3 apartment in New York City, and you go meet with your friends in the metaverse. You shop rather than online. If you go online, you're going to go to your computer in the metaverse, and you're going to go online in the metaverse to the Amazon website, which you're going to use your computer that you bought in the metaverse. And you're going to meet your friends in the metaverse and go to school in the metaverse, and all of these things are going to happen, and then you're going to take it off, and you're going to be in your 3x3 cubicle. That's the pitch.
The way to make that better, to make it more efficient, is you don't really want to come out of metaverse. You want to constantly just lay in a pod in the metaverse, and when you go to sleep,
do you realize the nihilism that's necessary to make that pitch compelling?
You plug a thing into the back of your neck to draw the energy out,
and occasionally robots come by and feed you.
Robots use you as a battery.
And I mean, I you know what I always felt with the Matrix? I was like, well, the other world they went into, that was shit compared to the Matrix. It's like, put me back in.
I think that was the idea.
Plug me back in.
That's the whole idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like, I don't know. It depends on how real that sensory experience ultimately becomes. If that can become perfectly real and perfectly manipulated, then effectively there'd be no distinction between your reality and that reality. If it was
that's
perfected.
the pitch.
Yeah,
but isn't that stupid?
I don't know. I mean, if it's the same thing as real, then it's like, I don't know. How much better could your life be in that digital reality? Maybe you say that now, but it's just like, think about all the things you hate in life. What if those things could be made much more positive?
The difference between me and everybody else is I have a list of 0 hates.
Well,
mosquitoes.
Okay, not hate,
mosquitoes.
But
yeah, fuck mosquitoes. I agree with that.
The problem is with the metaverse, the concept, like the way Eric is describing it, is that no matter how good it actually is, you know it's fake. And that makes it trash.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but that might not matter to people.
No, it will always matter.
No.
Always.
It matters for you.
Listen, I can jerk off to the hottest chick in porn right now. Like, you know what I mean? And I can wear it in a VR, headset.
Okay.
And it's very real.
They will definitely be able to make sex better in the metaverse.
The problem is it's not the same as the girl actually being there and the girl actually wanting you. That's a totally different experience.
Is that what you want?
That is what most people want, yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like that there's a lot of cost that they're disassociating with that whole
Sex
process.
is not a physical act anymore. It's mainly about validation.
You're generationally answering for everyone of every generation.
I'm telling you what the trend is, and that the trend is, like, especially for young males, that sex acts more as validation.
You're right,
Peter.
Peter.
As a physical release.
No, Peter, you're right. But there is so like I hear this all the time that since Socrates, everyone has criticized Socrates. Everyone has criticized the generation coming, right? And the thing is that occasionally, 99% of the time when you criticize the next generation, you are making a fatal mistake, right? Because they're going to change. They're going to have different values than you.
This music's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
This music's nothing. This is shit music. When in my day we listened to jazz. Yes. Jazz is the best.
We listen to hair metal.
Or my grandpa who banned jazz because it was for dancing, and dancing was evil.
Deep Purple is real rock.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
In my day, you dressed like a woman and you made music about the devil. Anyway, continue.
So this is a perpetual problem, generation. But occasionally, you end up with a generation that is the Maoist revolution.
Yeah.
That is like Hitler's
We're there now.
youth. You do end up in a generation sometimes that is worse than the previous generations, and like, I think it's not so much a critique of the generation as it is like, this is a critique of if we as humans move into a space where we are primarily digital beings, it's bad for us, both as a race and as just as people. Like it's not good for us. It's a worse world that it creates. It neglects this world. It neglects conservation and people. There's going to have to be the slaves and the peons that live in the real world. We're going to end up in a weird situation of like the Morlocks and the Eloi, where the Eloi live in the digital universe, and then occasionally the Morlocks have to come in and destroy that world by saying like you have to evacuate the nuclear power plant down the road that's powering your metaverse life is melting down, and like that's a problematic world, I think, when we are all living in a digitized version of our reality. That to me is a giant, awful thing.
So what if you could replicate the physical...
The pitch is bad. I'll put it that way. The pitch is bad. The pitch is that's what you're going to live in. Whereas I think the reality is that it's going to be more like video games.
What do you mean?
The pitch is rotten. The reality is going to be that it's video game. You're going to have...
I think what Junseth is saying is like, you don't want to pitch this alternative world to spend your entire life in. What you want to pitch is, yeah, you can get home from work and go skydiving for an hour because you can't, because, you can't
do that.
Yeah,
you can't afford it, or you're too fat,
or
whatever.
Or it's 6 o'clock on a Tuesday and it's dark. Or you can't get to the Liverpool game, so jump in there and feel like you're in the stadium watching a game.
Buy a seat in the stadium for 2 hours.
Or you can have sex with a celebrity who would never come near you in real
Sure.
life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go gambling. Whatever the hell it is.
We've all defined what we want from it.
But listen,
take a tour of Thailand. You're a hillbilly. You're a hillbilly in the middle of.
Listen, what the fuck? Let me just say this. What the fuck does any of this have to do with fucking DeFi, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, shitcoins? What the fuck does any of it? Yeah, XR, AR, VR, mixed reality. I remain bullish on these technologies. What the fuck does it have to do with any of that shit?
It has to do with VCs using the narrative, complicating the fact to make money from it.
NFTs allowed them to bridge buzzwords. That's what happened here.
The metaverse was a catch-all of buzzwords.
But they've been talking about AR, VR, AI for many years.
Yeah, and it hasn't caught on.
And when NFTs came, it allowed them to merge the concepts and talk about both at the same time.
Yes.
And it's the intersectionality of buzzword surfers.
Yep.
And that's what happened. Like it's a bad pitch. But like what I'm sad about isn't. I mean, like that's why the metaverse doesn't exist. The pitch is wrong. But what I'm sad about is how many people are compelled by the pitch. They're compelled to it. They come and they tell me that airplanes are going to be cheaper because they can fly in the metaverse for free, or you can build airplanes cheaper in the metaverse. Like, that's a stupid pitch.
Joseph, I don't think you were in this room with me, but I've been in multiple audio rooms where people have been telling me things equivalent to, the thing, man, is what had happened was I think that the metaverse is going to be like Pacific Rim. Did you ever see the movie Pacific Rim?
No.
Yeah, what's tight about that movie is that people in that movie, they pilot giant aliens through Neuralinks and shit.
Okay. That movie's sick.
No, it's sick, right? Anyway, so what I think is people are gonna like pilot heavy machinery through like robot interfaces. You know what I'm saying?
There may be some of that. Like I thought about this reality, right? Like let's say that airplanes are flying on their own.
By the way, that was a verbatim
and
quote.
you as a pilot, your only job is to get into the cockpit and land them, right?
Yes.
You're just landing airplanes all day. Maybe that's the new job of pilots, right? I could see a world where that's the case. But like, I don't see a world where people escape. I see a world where people want to escape reality. I'm saddened by the fact that so many people think that that's a good pitch. And I think that's a bad world.
Yeah.
I think it's a terrible world. And that's the only thing that really bothers me about the metaverse pitch is that like that's the world they're pitching. Whereas the reality
it's the world that Mark Zuckerberg is pitching.
Yes, and VCs generally.
Yeah.
And that's what doesn't exist. That's what will never exist. And if it does exist, you can kiss your society goodbye.
Yep.
Because there won't be the nuclear operators. There's not going to be the people that are, you're not going to be able to go to the beach and smell the fucking seashells in the ocean. You're going to live in sterile, hospital-like environments where you never leave, you never get exercise. You never do anything but sit there and just kind of like live in your fake fucking reality.
That's true.
That's a great end.
Yeah.
I think you summed it up perfectly. Final question for everyone. when it does come, I know you want to fuck girls, but what's the one thing you want to do in the metaverse that isn't sex? Just something interesting where you're like, yeah, I want that.
Can I fuck guys?
You can do anything. It's the metaverse.
Oh, cool. It's the metaverse. I want to fuck Batman.
You fuck Batman? I was just about to say that. I swear to God. I think I would. I think I'd get my barbecue on with a sick ass setup. That'd be the first thing I'd do.
You'd have a barbecue.
I'd have a barbecue with my boys.
Fuck's sake!
I'd start a laundromat.
A laundromat, yes.
For metaverse laundry.
Empty the metaverse chain.
Like,
from the laundry machines.
I mean, I would remember Guitar Hero, right?
Yeah.
5 buttons, you could play any song. I would be playing guitar for Metallica at Wembley Stadium.
It would be cool. Like, I think that there's certain things that would be just really neat. Like, actually, I don't know, going to like Jurassic Park, like the real metaverse, like if it was really realistic. Seeing things that you couldn't see, or like going places that you couldn't normally go, to Thailand or something like that, and walking the streets, places that you've never been. I think that's a cool thing that you're going to be able to do in virtual reality. But I guess what I'm saying is, for me, there's a distinguishment between the pitch of the metaverse and virtual reality itself. Virtual reality, I am bullish on. The metaverse, as it's pitched, as a matrix that you escape reality from, I'm not only bearish, but if that comes to fruition, I'm out. I'm going to Virginia Woolf myself into the ocean. Going to walk until I die.
Really outdated reference. Listen, I'm not going to mince words. I'm going to follow I'm going to follow in Chris Dixon's footsteps, and I hope to enslave as many people as I possibly can, because that's the point of Web3, is for me to be on top of everybody who lives on my digital plantation.
You could run on a plantation in the metaverse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
You're going to pick the digital cotton. You're going to fucking like it. My name's Chris Dixon. Fuck you.
Should we go to Jukes?
Let's do it.
Let's go to Jukes. All right. Well, listen, Junseth, thanks for coming in, dude.
No, I loved it.
Missed you, brother. We should do this more often.
We should. I absolutely love these shows.
Be regular. I'll be nearer you. Bitcoin 2022.
How do I buy into your club?
Yeah, everyone's asking that.
Is that true? Is everyone asking?
Like,
you got to show them how to use an open dime.
Yeah,
I'll show you how to use open.
I'm doing an ICO. Your share comes in as a NFT that you can only activate within the metaverse.
Oh, good. Okay.
You're in now, though. You're in, aren't you?
I more like the idea of number one, owning a small part of a soccer club, and number two, seeing you more often. So.
Well, listen, look, we should do this more often, and it's great to see you, man. I love you, dude. HODL, you're a fucking idiot, and I love you too. Eric, love you too, man. You're my new love. All right, guys, let's go to Jukes. Peace out.
Bye.